John had
All right.
John had John had his group, the messengers, and me and Kearney was standing up there watching them at that time. Well, that's how I met Tony.
Okay. So Tony, you
Mhm.
were also part of the messengers.
No, no.
No.
Chuck, tell him who we were.
Oh, he was part of the soulful movements.
So
They
from
had their own group then.
okay. And at the time,
Yeah.
you were part of the messengers, Charles.
Yeah, I just had left the exotic movements.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
okay. And there was a photo since we're still waiting for Vic. I want to bring up this photo. Tony, you were wondering about.
Chuck, there's I don't know if you've seen this DVD. It's Media Circus. It's about 5 or 6 videos. They entered the Newberry, and actually the interview that they had with Newberry is a different one. I saw a different one. He's talking about on this particular interview. He says Steve Williams is the first guy he ever saw get down, which shocked me. I'm like, what? He said he saw Steve down in a house party.
You know, Newberry used to live over that way too. So yeah, I
That's
can believe that.
weird.
I could believe.
I, I didn't know. I'm saying, and the way he rocks, it's like, really, you saw Steve, you dance like that. But anyway, uh, Randy's being interviewed, and he says his uncle, which I heard before, his uncle Lewis, he's the
Hmm.
first guy he saw get out, and he said get this, Chuck. He said, and his friend Steve Watts. So you know Steve Watts is, and he said the guy said, well, who else influenced you? And he said Steve and Ted. That shocked me. I never heard Randy say that.
But shit,
And
if he
then
seen them, he should have been dangerous then, doing the
well, but I'm
stuff he
saying
was
his
doing,
style
bro.
was nothing like theirs, right?
I
And
know it. I know it.
his and Hamill, and so there when he's saying that, they show a screenshot of this young guy look like he's swinging his hand and posing. And I want Animated J to put it up on the screen and see if you recognize if this is Hamill or not. But I've never seen him. I don't even know what he looks like. And he's got a big fro, he's kind of thin dude. So I'm like, I
Mhm.
want to say something. Let Chuck, if Chuck is on tonight, let him look at this photo and say, hey, yeah, that's him, or no, that's not. I remember him, or whatever.
Mhm.
It looks like he might be on Soul Is or some kind of dance show or something. I don't know. So I sent it. I sent it to Jay. I made a screenshot and sent it to him so he can put it up there and let you see if you remember. It's just like, is
Okay,
this him?
okay.
Because it looked like whoever it is, they look like they're hitting the poles or something.
Hmm.
Because Hamill, Jay, Animated Jay, and Bryce, just so you know, he's first generation Boogaloos. He's one of the first legends around at that time with Jerry and Albert and the late Michael Enoch and all those guys. We see the
Hmm.
Deuce Doom default window, Jay. That's all we see.
Hey, Tone, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. I should have bought a tripod. Hmm.
How you doing,
Chuck,
Chuck?
about
Hey,
I'm
what's
sorry,
going on,
how
Bryce?
old is
How you been?
Boogaloo Vic?
Doing all right.
All right, all right.
Chuck, about how old is Boogaloo Vic?
Shit, Vic is 50. I think he's 59 or something like
Oh,
that.
okay. So he's kind of now. Is he from the Bay Area originally, or where's he
Yeah,
from?
yeah, he's from Oakland.
Oh, so he's kind of like in Newberry's in the area. Then it sounds like, or maybe a little
Um,
younger.
yeah, yeah. Well, he was Dana. He seen Dana. He around Dana's era and shit. Yeah,
So I'm saying Dana's my age, and so I'm saying
yeah.
he's
But Dana
five,
was a
6 years older than him.
but they know each other,
Okay,
and Dana they seen each other dance.
okay.
Shit. Mm. Yeah.
Okay, I was just talking with Vic, so he's trying to get on through his
Oh,
phone.
all right.
Oh,
So
okay,
he should be
okay.
getting on shortly. So I want to hear what his thoughts are as well.
Right.
But let
Me
me
too.
for the image that we were just talking about. Let me see if I could send it here. So for anyone in the chat, you can look at the image we were just talking about. Mm.
Mm.
Chuck, who was that? Your son?
Yeah, I have to call him to come do shit. uh, Yeah.
Chuck, does he get out too?
No. He could party dance and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Hamo on the left.
Oh, on that image that I just sent.
Yeah, Anthony Hamilton
Where? Okay, wait a minute. I don't see anything. What image? Oh, okay.
in the chat.
The
Chuck,
picture that we
look
were
in the
this
chat and see,
Yep.
see if that's Hamill to the
Yeah, I
far
can't.
left.
Shit, I can't. Only person I see up here is you. Then I
Okay, no, it's in
seen
the chat. It's in the chat.
shit.
It's the last thing in the
Yeah,
chat.
that's him. So that picture is from uh the yearbook 72
Okay, see, that's
Fremont,
Fremont then. Okay.
and he was best dancer along with those people there.
Ooh, so that must be him then,
Yeah.
because I
I
never
can't
saw him.
see
Chuck,
it.
does that look like Hamill?
I can't see it. The chat.
It's
Where's the chat?
it's him. We know it's him.
In the bottom, look in the
I've seen the
bottom
book.
tray, and you'll see a thing says chat. It has a 2 in it right now.
Okay, it's loading.
You could just show
And
it.
then click the image.
That's him with the shirt on, right? The tall one.
That's what I'm asking you. Yeah, does that remember Hamill like that?
Yeah. I think that's him right there.
I'm saying, because see how he look
Yeah.
like he posing with his arm out like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that dude was a legend on our side of town. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that picture
So that's
from the
his first name is
72 yearbook.
Anthony. I thought it was either Daryl or Anthony. I didn't know. But just so that people know, his last name was Hamilton, but everybody called him Hamill for short. So that's where the Hamill comes from.
Nice. All right. So, let's get started. I'm sure Vic is gonna jump on any moment, but we'll get started for everyone, Mitchell and Bryce that are here, and then yeah. First, I want to thank you again, Tony Newsome, for coming through for this interview. I know you
My
were
pleasure.
at the last one when we did it with Jerry and also Kearney when he came in as well. And then Chuck, I want to thank you as well for coming through, finding time to share your story as well.
Oh yes.
And hopefully Vic will join as well. We can have everyone here together. But the first question I want to ask, because I'm recording this as well, so this what we talk about can be shared on YouTube and Instagram, and dancers from all over the world, they can watch it, they can hear the stories and history. So yeah, just giving a little context of that. And then Mitchell or Bryce or anyone that joins in, if they have questions, you can let me know, and then I'll ask Charles and Tony the questions. But my first question I want to ask, and this is for both Tony and Charles, is how did you get into the dance? What was your I guess that gate, how you got into it? What was that?
I like that. The gate. Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, well, when I was at Stonehurst Elementary, my brother had started going to Elmhurst Junior High in the 7th grade. So he used to come to the house and say, "Yeah, this is the dance they doing up there, right?" But I didn't never pay no attention to him till I got to Elmhurst and I got to see what he was trying to explain to me. And once I seen it, yeah, I wanted to do it.
What was it that what were people, was it Boogaloo? I know that people have mentioned the dance people were doing with Boogaloo. Was that what you saw?
Yeah, that's what they was doing.
Okay.
And then Elmhurst Junior High had a 2 days talent show.
Mm.
Yeah, so I went there, and that's where I seen the Black Resurgence at that time, and I seen another group that was Banana Baby and Gary Carter and one more dude, but I didn't know the name of their group. I thought it for a long time. I thought it was 1+1 because it was three of them. But when I asked Jerry, he said no, that wasn't them. So I asked William Randolph, and he told me. Yeah.
Okay. And then was it you started like training and hanging around?
No, what happened, I started dancing with my friend around the corner, right? His mom worked at the post office and his dad worked at Simon Brothers at the filling station, right? So when they be gone, me and him go in there and we started dancing. We tried to do Albert move. We had we didn't have no move. We had the worming, and we had to flip the collar up and turn and start creeping. You know, we only had a couple of
Ah,
moves. Yeah. So he got into the exotic movements, and I was like, what? He said, yeah. So I told him I'd get me in there. So 2 weeks later, I was dancing with him.
what year was this around?
Oh shit. In 70, it had to be 72 or 71, late 71 or early 72.
Oh,
Yeah.
and so Exotic Movements was the first group that you were
Yeah.
nice. Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. And shifting to Boogaloo Vic, can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
Awesome.
What's up, Boogaloo Vic?
Hey, it's an honor, Tony. You know what I mean?
Likewise, my brother.
I've been waiting to touch bases with you for quite some time. You know what I mean?
Feel like any time, my brother.
You know that sort of thing right there, bruh.
No. So we were just pretty much just beginning of sharing how we got into this dance that Chuck was just sharing of how what he first saw, the exotic movement, the group that he joined, and then the year that he joined.
Okay.
So Boogaloo Vic, and if you'd like to give a little introduction of yourself of how you got into this dance, what was the beginning stages of that?
Uh, Way early. As a little kid, I remember my older cousins setting me up over my great aunt's house in line and
Mm.
teaching me how to domino, teaching me how to do step moves,
Mm.
group step moves. You know, like in the beginning for me, as I remember, it was kind of like, you know, imitating the Jackson Fives or the Temptations or the OJs or something like that. You know, these group steps.
Mm.
And then we got into these routines. I didn't know where it was coming from. So I was just being taught this stuff. So
Mhm.
we did the baseball diamond routine. It was just different types of routines that involved animation,
Mm.
um,
Mhm.
illusions. What happened was you're in a domino, and so one person would always get bumped off at the end of the domino. You know, you do a couple of steps, then a person at the end would get bumped off, and then they'll go into a solo. So
Mhm.
that's how I learned how to be a solo dancer, and I've been a solo dancer forever. I
Wow.
came through the early years of boogalooing and transferred from, or should I say, evolved from the early years of boogalooing into popping here in the Bay
Okay.
Area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because I definitely want to go into what is this connection between Boogaloo and popping, the connection between Oakland and LA. I want to get to that. A question someone asked was, could we get a definition of what dominoing is? It's very hard to find online what dominoing is.
Oh, that's like what they call it, like if you you stacking up dominoes, you ever seen them? They touch one and all of them boom, 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 boom.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's what domino is. That's what we was doing. That's what all of Oakland, you know, they have group. They call it catch on now, you know. But back then it was domino.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
Right. Like a chain reaction, right? Like
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
right. Basically,
yeah.
right,
Okay.
right.
Got you.
And
Got
hey, Jay, excuse me, for the record, the messengers in the Bay Area had the coldest domino in the game.
you. Okay. We're
Straight
gonna
up.
want to
The
get
boys was
into
cold blooded.
I want to get into that as well of the formation of the messengers. What was that like when the group began? But before we go a little
Oh,
too far, Tony Newsome, I like to also hear of again. I know we've talked already a bit, but for those that don't know, how did you get into the dance?
Well, I want to add a little something, and then I'll tell the main story because I want to hear these other two gentlemen. But when I was in the fifth grade, I went to a little school called Burbank. It was just starting to get integrated. So for the most part, it was still a lot of white students. We didn't know what Boogaloo was. Never heard of it. Chuck, do you remember this sitcom that came on in the late '60s called My Three Sons?
Yeah.
With Fred Maybe, you remember me? One time I'm
Hmm.
standing out on the porch, and this kid, Calvin, he was real tall and skinny. He probably was like 6'1" or 6'2", but because he was so skinny, it made him look taller. So he played basketball. He's real good in hoop. And so he was coming up the hill, right? So I was standing on the porch, and he was like over here. And I knew who it was because it wasn't completely dark. And when I looked over, he had bent over like he was going to do a camel walk, and he started going. He said, and he went about 5 or 6 steps, right? And I was like, what the hell was that? I didn't know what it was. So 2 years later, I get to Frick Junior High, 7th grade, know nothing about Boogaloo. I'm in woodshop, and this kid, Craig Moss, and Larry Williams, one of Ted's younger brothers, they were going back and forth about something. I didn't realize what it was until later. What had happened was Larry was in the dance contest for the 7th graders, and Craig was in the dance contest. Craig Moss was dancing with this girl named Jewel Clay. Jewel was in gymnastics, so she started doing these backward flips and splits, and the girls went wild. So they won. Larry was dancing with this girl I found out later was my cousin named Emily Montgomery. So Craig tried to play it, I'm better than you because we won the dance contest. That's what they were beefing about. So bell rung, we took our projects and we were going into this next room where you put your projects. So Larry had his back to me and Craig was about 6, 7 feet down here. So I thought they were getting ready to fight. I said, man, let me get out of here. So as I put my project away and I closed the door, Larry had this jean coat on. So he let the jean coat fall. Now I'm passing him. I'm like, what is he doing? And his hand came up like this, Chuck. And he posed. And when he posed, everybody said, oh. So I looked down at Craig Moss real quick. I don't know what this kid was doing, but it was whack. I mean, it was completely whack. And I remember Larry broke down on the right, and then he pulled himself back up like this. Wait a minute, he pulled himself like this, and when he got up to the top, he did his chest, and everybody said, oh. Craig quit. He stopped, and everybody bust out laughing. So we went outside. It was a crowd followed Larry outside. So when he got outside, I eased up to him. I said, yo, man, what was that you was doing back there? So he was kind of surprised, Chuck. He looked at me and said, oh, that's a Boogaloo. He said, you ain't hip to Boogaloo? I said, no, man. I said, could you teach me that? He said, yeah, I'll teach you. And there was a bathroom, men's bathroom. We call it a latrine. A latrine right next to the men's gymnasium. So we used to go in there every day at lunch. Nobody ever came in there. Never. And it was weird. And one day we were in there, right? And Larry, Chuck, he leaned. I had never seen that before. It rocked my world. I'm like, what is it? And you know what, Chuck, he bumped his shoulders and he went over. And he went over. And he went over and he fell back.
Hey.
I was looking at this kid. He's 13 years old, James. He was smooth. Larry was like a 9th or 10th grader in the 7th grade. That's how far he was above the 7th grade. So I'm looking, and I remember one day we were in there, and he said, my older brother, Steve, he goes here. He said, he's good. He said, but my older brother, Ted, goes to Fremont. He's real good. Man, when I saw Steve Williams, the late great Steve Williams, I said to myself, if Ted is better than this guy, I got to see this Ted guy. Because Steve was, Larry was here. Steve was clearly here. You know what I'm saying? And Larry said, Ted was, oh man. When I saw Ted Williams, he's my idol to this day. Jay, wow, I was on fire. I told Chuck, the way I like to describe Ted Williams, and I said this on the last one, imagine you're in a park on a hot day and a statue just got up and moved. You're like, did you see? He looked freaky in a good way. The way that dude could manipulate his body, and he was real dark. You know what I mean? He wore brims. He would have his collar up. Man, that dude was cold-blooded, man. He could lean forward. He could lean sideways. The dude was he was a monster. Solo Boogaloo, man. Now, again, I didn't see everybody, so I'm not trying to go there. But on our side of town, the sheriff's name was Ted Williams, and nobody was arguing.
You mentioned in your story, Tony, you mentioned how when in school when the kid took his jacket off and he put his arm up and posed. What is why is the pose the pose seems to be such a essential part of the dance and Boogaloo dance. And I know people now, they talk of like popping and hitting and hard, but it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, and this is what I want to hear is what's the meaning of the pose? Why the pose? What is this? What does the pose mean?
Chuck?
The pose is like, it's something like if you hitting the move, right? And then all of a sudden you just stop, right? It adds more to your movement when you're doing it. It's like it give it a more better look.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in fact, let me just add what he's saying. If you have a cold-blooded pose, that makes the move. Like, for instance, me and Chuck could do the same move, but because his pose is better than mine, it just makes the move look tight. Because otherwise, like, you see people waving and all that stuff, they're not really posing at the end of it. What we would do, whatever you did, I called it freeze when I was a kid, but whatever you did when you stopped, that did it, especially on a stage. Because people were like, I tell you what, back in the day, John Murphy, when he was Boogaloo, John could pose. That boy he was real thin back then. Remember, Chuck? But he could pose. And that's what made his moves look really, really tight. Ted Williams, I can't, I may embarrass myself, but Jay, I want to say one thing before we get too far deep into this, because I wanted to bring this up. Because Vic and Chuck and all, we all kind of about the same age. I'm gonna embarrass myself a little bit because I can't do what I used to be able to do. But let's just say I was known for something called time lapsing, and I'm gonna try to do it with my hands. But like I said, I'm an old man now, so y'all can cut me some slack. But I'm saying, let's say I was doing something like this, like they see me dancing, they said, "Man, dude was doing his hands, and it looked real, And they said, "What is that?" And I said, "Oh, that's I call time lapsing." And then somebody like Chuck will tell you, said, "Time lapsing." Man, we call it animating. So that's kind of what's going on with a lot of this stuff now. They're renaming stuff as if it's new. And it's like, okay, you did innovate it, but the root of what you're talking about, we was doing that back in the day, and the guys before us was doing it. So it's not really necessarily, all that new is what I'm trying to get at. And I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to hate on the newer generation at all. Some of what they do is very creative. But when they start using words like Boogaloo and animation, you're talking about Oakland, man. Okay. Some kind of way Oakland has to come up, because the stuff we did, y'all don't even do anymore. I don't see anybody spinning their head. I don't see anybody worming. I don't see anybody swinging their arms. I don't see anybody posing. That's Boogaloo. On East Oakland Boogaloo. I mean, when I say East Oakland, I'm telling the whole Bay Area. And I'm saying Oakland, we were the pioneers. And in my opinion, I'm probably going to catch some hate for this, I think East Oakland was a close. But I'm just going to say, but all of Oakland, but I'm saying East Oakland Boogaloo, classic Boogaloo.
I'm going to agree with you on that. I've seen it. I've seen it all. So pretty much. And I can tell you right now, there's not nothing that I've seen these guys do pretty much up until now, this point, that is new. It's like a lot of the stuff that I see from Southern California down here, I've already seen before, starting in the 70s. I just have to tell my truth.
Yeah.
This is my opinion, my truth. And some people, they're not going to fare well with that, But to be quite honest with you, a lot of the dancers that are out there, especially a lot of these OGs, not to say that I seen it before because I saw you do it. No, I saw it well way before you probably even started, from a lot of the older guys. I was always around the older crowd, my mother, in fact, even showed me how to get down a little bit, So, yeah. She showed me how to, do that head roll for the Egyptian,
Yes.
It was just, some madness like that, you know what I mean? But
Yes.
She had her thing like this, and yeah. So we're talking about like 72, but then again, I was going up back and forth. I've been in like back and forth to Los Angeles where I've seen dancers down out there dance in the early 70s.
Mm.
So this has been around for a long time, and the development, the the most serious aspects of it, I think, were like in the 80s. The 70s were the Messengers and the Resurgence and some of those guys like that. We see them as like the Boogaloo gods. They were awesome, and the legends we couldn't keep up with. We heard these stories all the time. So, Tony, I was looking and head hunting for you, but you guys are all retired. We was hearing all these stories of all these legends and the leaning and the chest blowing up because Gaston was blowing me up with a lot of stories also. Uh, I don't want to take anything away from anyone because I went through Oakland with the Boogaloo in at the tail end of a serious time, but I started traveling like through the Bay Area, moving up to Hayward, San Lorenzo, all the way from Fremont, Union City to San Jose. And there's a lot of people that I know that will support me on that. So I saw Boogaloo come and go maybe three different times, and I saw popping pretty much coming and going in and out maybe about three different times, where it was just different eras of it, and people aren't going to speak about that. Popping is the survival of the Boogaloo out of disco for that 12-inch and disco, that era. We're talking definitely before hip hop. Have I seen anyone, just like Mr. Newsome was saying, that raw? No, these Oakland cats, they were dangerous, and they were hanging with the poppers. When I moved to Hayward, I met a cat named Anthony Jones. Anthony Jones was coming from the Fresno relays at that time. There was a bunch of my older peers, from my school. They were running track and going out to the Fresno relays, and they were coming back with this information telling us, these are stories. I couldn't get there, so I lived through their eyes, hearing these stories. And we tried to emulate and imitate the legends, the story of Newsome, the story of the messengers were like unicorns. So, everybody spoke of seeing them, but didn't really see them. So there were made up stories, such as them being actually a 12-member group, which I think kind of got mixed up with the Resurgence. It was a 12-member group, and they broke up 6 and 6. One was Street Edge, and one was like, yeah. It was Street Edge, and then one was like show business. So,
Shit.
with all these stories that were going around, this is definitely prior to social media, texting, or even paging. We passed these stories on, and they seem to just grew and they grew and they grew, and it was from one city to another city within the Bay Area, and that's how a lot of the art form got spread around. A lot of these families were moving from Oakland into other cities by means of Section 8, just simply trying to get away from areas like Oakland, San Francisco being like right across the water from us, learning and adapting their own style, Richmond as well. But the ground 101, I would say, for the heart of popping came from Fremont, California, by way of Hayward. Hayward, like, had the seed, right? But Fremont grew it. and grew it into something worldwide, if you ask me. This is my opinion. Also, the term popping, for some reason in the early years, okay, like 77, right? It seemed to be a thing that I heard like the Filipinos were speaking on, and I thought they were giving Boogaloo another name, by the way of how they might speak or whatever. And so when I moved to Hayward, popping actually existed because a person told me, Anthony Jones, that we're not doing the old style of Boogaloo no more. We're popping now. And as he showed me, it was something else. It was something a little bit more fluid, but it lacked that hit. It didn't have the hit. Wasn't necessary no longer. It was more fluid. We understood and connected to dance. This is an era also of party. So in both eras of the Boogaloo and popping, the partying scene was okay. So you have funk with the Boogaloo. You got James Brown and a lot of that stuff. It was a cold scene. That posing and all that, it was real hard. But see, in the club, I mean, we were getting into fairgrounds, malls, wherever. It's just it was a lot of I hate to say this, it was faster. You had to keep up with it. The timing of the music was different. You went from a downbeat to now a different tempo where you got like not just the funk, but you got like a funk disco, a funk R&B disco, and the 12 inches coming in, the breaks are coming in, the longer versions are coming in, and you got to understand. We had to learn how to interpretate in between that long positioning of the music, when it came down to that breakdown. So now I see it with these youngsters where they have a real nice interpretation with the music, but they just seem to lack the dance. In the 70s, there were dances like I was speaking this with someone just the other day. The penguin, the rocking horse, the bump, these type of dances, these were like more like funk dances, and they, it's that type of thing. But when it came to that disco, it was like, and you had to keep up with that. And some of the music that I would say that when I'm talking to Chuck in our private lives, I'm telling Chuck, we would dance to this, and he would like, man, I would never ever dance to something like that.
Interesting.
And it just cracks me up, and I have a real good understanding of how the older generation looks at the generation after them, and how you can judge a generation on what you might determine as see, you don't want to be insulting because people they're real sensitive nowadays especially about dances. Like I told you over the phone, we all have a right to do the dance, but no one person has the right to F it up, right? Okay, and that's packaging it up. So, oh, Tony, I'm gonna come with it. So packaging up, selling it worldwide, and then selling a very watered down version of it, and that's what put the art form behind. It was supposed to constantly evolve. It evolved into popping, and then what was supposed to be next. So you got some aspects of turfing here, then the juking, bucking, and things of that nature. But imagine what would have come if it wasn't for a lot of the watered down aspect. How it would have grown then.
And you're saying how Boogaloo would have grown if it wasn't watered down?
Well, it got watered down. See, so it was like, and I just really hate to go there, but it's the truth. The more it came from Black culture, and so a lot of the guys that were, doing that, they weren't the average dancers in the party. You know, some of these guys would be hard from the streets, you know, and they took that to their dance, you know, you know, and that's another thing. I hate to call it a street dance. You know, I don't like that aspect. We're dancers, period. But it's where we dance, you know, in the parties, the clubs, for me, malls, football games, school dances, and things of that nature. But would it had evolved into something, you know, 10 times as much with the Boogaloo? Yeah, I think some of these guys with their mental take on their dance. I was talking to Jerry the other day, and he said the TV show Wild Wild West, at the beginning, the guy did the little walk in place, and I flashed. I said, "Whoa, wait a minute! I remember that." And it framed off, and he stood in place, and he did that stuff. It was actually something that people did. You know, the miming, walking in place, going down the escalator, walking the dog, being in a box. All that was already done years before popping. Years before popping. The lean, blowing up the chest, that Michael Jackson turned around and took the backslide and called it the moonwalk, was one of the biggest farces that we can speak on. Oakland is responsible for creating and starting the dance and growing it into popping, period. There is no ifs, ands, and buts about it. And I'm a part of nurturing that, you know.
You also mentioned earlier about how back in the day, seeing the black messengers, it was like a unicorn, like it was a rare moment to see them.
Oh yeah. So I was in Hayward well, I moved in Hayward. I would come first and visit in '77. There was a Funk on the Green concert. I don't know. Was that that was before? No, that was after the Gong Show, right? Was that after the Gong Show, Chuck? The Funk on the Green?
Before.
That was
I think before, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, we were always talking about, you know, certain individuals, and Monk, the Iron Man. I mean, you heard about a lot of different people, Boogaloo Dana, Newberry. And so you want to meet these guys, you know, and you're excited about meeting them. But if you're a dancer, you're not only excited about meeting them, but calling them out and trying to get some and get educated, you know. And when I pretty much came about coming out of Oakland, a lot of these guys that pretty much retired dancing, you know, and so we just had the legends. So I was at a concert once, pretty much, I think, yeah, I was at this Funk on the Green concert, and you hear this crowd erupting, and they're looking like within a circle, and there's three guys dancing with the makeup on. They got the wigs on and the hats, and they dance, they hit the moves real quick, and then they disappear, right? And I was like, whoa, we saw the messengers. And so, to this day, we don't know if it was them or not, you know, but we saw these guys, and it was the messengers. And then you go to school, yeah, they were here, they were there, and then all of a sudden, bam, in '78, they show up on the Gong Show. Oh, wow. My goodness. It was like a celebration from one city to another, you know, almost like we partied about it. I mean, they represented us. They gave the world, you know, an aspect and a glimpse into what we were knowing and had been doing for a long time in Oakland.
Wow.
And a lot of these guys that were in Oakland, they weren't getting their notoriety outside of Oakland. But a lot of the people that were living in Oakland that did get out, they took them stories with them to other cities, you know, And so you would have people in those cities trying to imitate with their hearing. Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's a beautiful thing, man. This whole story of this art form, and it comes from nowhere, and it's been around the world. It's been in the aspects of great artists, right? Using it, not just talking about Michael Jackson, you know, and real talk, they owe it to us. And matter of fact, hip hop owes it to us. These rappers, they owe it to us. It got to a point to me to where it seemed like the music was starting to be catered for us, right? I mean, like they celebrated watching us dance to their music. You know, how else can you explain, besides the drugs that Parliament was doing, that, you know, they had that hard crack, or that bass line, and it wasn't just about you doing the rock or the bump. You know what I'm saying? I was watching these guys get down, like, you know, we tuned in for real to Soul Train, but I got it from Soul Train and the people that I grew up with, you know, and I put that together and combined that into something, and that became a part into what we call popping, you know.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Charles,
Hmm.
what is your, because you are a Black Messenger. What was your
Hmm.
relationship to Black Messenger's resurgence? I know I hear the two groups. I'm not clear on what the relationship between those two groups. And also, how did you get in? How did you become part of the Black Messengers?
Well, Kearney had danced with this group called the Continental Five, right? And so I don't know if they was together or not, but they was having assembly at Elmhurst. So Randy and myself and Lil Ricky, that was in the exotic movements, and Cody and Butch, that was original Black Resurgence. So we decided to get together and dance at this Elmhurst assembly. So we did, and after that, Randy invited me to Tassa to see the Messengers, right?
Hmm.
When they was dancing against Tony Newsome them group, the Soulful Movement. So I told him, okay, I'll be over there. So when I came over there and seen it, and then after that, two of the guys, um, Brandon and J Dub, they left the group. So it left from John, Randy, and Stanley. So Kearney and I came into the picture then. So and then Stanley left. I think Stanley left and went to Germany. So it
Hmm.
left Kearney, John, Randy, and myself. For a long time, it was just four of us.
Hmm.
And so Monk Monk is my elementary friend, right? We were good friends in elementary school.
Hmm.
And Donnie lived up the street, right? Because he had a twin, so his twin brother we used to always be hanging around with each other, going fishing and all this, right?
Hmm.
So one day I was coming from Castlemont, and I happened to see I was looking down the street, right? I was like a block up from, I was on 88, but they was on 88th and Plymouth. I was a block up, so I seen him and this guy named Danny Mills. They was hitting moves on me, right? But I was just looking at him, and I was like, oh shit. I didn't know Donnie was dancing, right? Both of them could hit, was hitting moves, right, on me.
Hmm.
I said, oh, okay. So after I brought Monk to the group, and then I put Donnie in the group. And yeah,
Okay. And then this is the Black Messengers, the group
it's
that
the Black Messages. Yeah. It was already Kearney and John and Randy. So with myself, so I brought them two into the group. And yeah,
okay.
that's been the Black Mess for a while. Yeah.
And what's the relationship between the Messengers and the Resurgence?
Rivalry.
Rivalry.
Rivalry. Yeah. We see um the Black Resurgence, we Larry Robinson, he was in one of my classes, and I knew him, but I really didn't know Ronnie like that. And and the rest of them, right? I knew Robin too, because Robin was in my class. He was in my gym class. And yeah, it was rivalry, you know.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, got you. Okay. And within the Black Messengers, because was there a lot of groups at this time, or were there like groups starting to form?
Um, at this time, it was basically it was a few groups, but the ones that was lasting the most, it was the Black Resurgence and the Messengers. We was um the groups that was still keeping it going, right? Then other groups start coming in,
Mhm.
you know, a whole lot of groups start coming in. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah.
With the movements, what were some of the movements you guys were doing during within the Black Messengers?
Oh,
What would you describe? What were the names of the movements?
I don't. You know what? I don't know because I was creating a lot of the routines in the movement in the messengers. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I always looked at it like this. When I'm at home dancing, right?
Mhm.
I said, "Oh shit." I say, if all of us do that, it'll be tight, right?
Okay.
So that's what I started doing. Yeah.
Okay, okay. What about like the outfit and the message that you wanted the public to receive? What was the message you want
Well,
people to receive?
well, with the costumes and stuff, what we wore, that was Randy and myself, right? We would go somewhere, all of us would go to the mall, but Randy and I would pick the clothes out, you know, what we would wear. Yeah.
Okay. And now because I know you use canes, right? There was canes, you had hats. What was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what was the
That cane movement is what I created and brought in there, right? And how that happened, I was sitting on the bed, right? And I was practicing martial arts, right? So when Randy came over, I had sat down on the bed and I started spinning that cane, and he was standing up on the bed, leaning over like this, right? And he kept looking, and he said, "Yeah, Chuck, we should do that." "Do what?" "We should spin the canes like that." Oh, he said, "Do that again," and I did it again, right? So that's how that cane stuff started. Well, spinning the cane,
Mm.
yeah.
Okay, cool, cool.
Hmm.
I love this.
Hmm.
Like, just grab like a moment happens and it's like let's put that in.
Oh
That
yeah.
okay. What about I noticed there's a move I've seen you do where you take like your jacket and it's like a headless like the headless horseman.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. That's what
What
they call it, the headless horseman, man.
was that? Is
Wow.
that from literally like a show of the headless horseman?
That, yeah, that's just, I'm just I'm in the laboratory and I say, okay, I pull the code up, boom, right? And I said, oh shit. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, cool, cool.
yeah.
Uh, I want to ask Boogaloo Vic, since you said you did travel to LA, you were going back and forth, Oakland, LA, and areas in between.
In the early 70s, my mother, she would take us to trips on, to LA, where we had cousins out there. And like I said, in the early 70s, I remember one time she took me to Los Angeles, and my cousin, he took me outside in the morning time. We walked around the neighborhood, and he ran into this one guy, and the guy was hitting like this robot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But, he was real nice with it. And might I say that he was a white guy,
Mm-hmm.
And my cousin was like calling him out, and the guy was like, "Boom, boom." And I was just a little bitty guy. I was like, "Whoa, wow, that dude is pretty raw." But now, my cousin was from Oakland, and he's pretty nasty with it. And they was just messing around. In the '80s, I went to Los Angeles a couple of times, and I don't want to get too deep in it. And then also in the '80s, I am the person that brought Pop and Pete, Sugar Pop, Shabadoo, Boogaloo Shrimp, a whole bunch of these guys out to Newark, California,
Mm-hmm.
right after they did the movie Electric Boogaloo, helping them promote the movie. Um, and I was trying to give a lot of people the opportunity in the Bay Area to meet and greet. And I felt like, I looked at the situation, I really felt like, hey, we would smash these cats, So we gave them an opportunity to come out here and let's see what you got.
Oh, okay.
And it became such a socializing situation. I don't know. We're also talking in the era where people are schemish, and they don't really just come out and they don't dance. That's how that whole thing got started. You go and then I go. Because prior to that, with Chuck and those guys, they were, like I told you, in each other's face getting it. You would dance and you'd just be all in the front of the other guy while the other guy is in front of you getting down, When it came towards the 80s, people a little bit more schemish, and you had a few of the guys that were struggling, scragglers from the Boogaloo era. They were coming into the early years of popping. They took advantage of, or we took advantage of these novice, type of individuals. They were schemish to come out. So you go first. No, you go first. And a lot of times the more experienced person would step out and he would just shut it down before it even gets started,
Right.
There's a whole lot of stories I can tell and a whole lot of aspect, but, since Boogaloo Vic's on here with you and Bryce, you know how I do. It's time to take it over, baby. Hey, Newsome, how you doing, man? Tell us relationship with Dennis in San Diego, please. Can you share some of that with us?
He's my cousin, but really he came on the scene late. But I want to address something that Chuck mentioned. This is just my personal opinion. Now I've said this to Chuck before. I don't know how they feel, but when Chuck refers to Monk, his real name is Jory Walker.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, he was the most gifted guy in the group, and I'll tell you why I say that. Chuck, Randy, John, myself, Kearney, we could boogaloo and we could robot. Monk could boogaloo and robot, but he could also lock. Was cold-blooded and he was in gymnastics. That sucker could flip. Monk to me, he was like Sammy Davis Jr. He could do everything well. Wow. Now, he wasn't the best boogaloo in the group. He wasn't the best robot, but he all around, in my opinion, he was like Magic Johnson or Oscar Robertson in basketball. He'd do everything. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to say that. So his real name is Jory Walker. That dude, man, he was incredible to me. He was very, very talented.
Man, I wanted to meet Monk so much, and come to find out after all these years, I ran into Monk many a times because he was on 82nd and what's that, Bancroft, Chuck?
Mm-hmm. At the liquor store.
82nd and Bancroft, where they serve the taco link.
And he was also at the Eastmont Mall at that cookie place.
That too.
Yeah, he worked there.
And Quick Wave.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. You know what? Let me say something else too. I used to go over after me and Chuck became friends. I used to go over Chuck's house. Chuck, what was that? 87th or 88th?
88.
88. And Chuck was a type. I called Chuck like Evander Holyfield in boxing. He would never come out with something until he had it down pat. And after a while, when I would go over his house, and Chuck would say, "Tone, I got something," I knew, okay, he done put this thing together and he's gonna drop it. I used to go over Chuck's house, and Chuck had a lot of old classic James Brown. We used to all like to get down to James Brown. And he would put something on, and I would sit there like, okay, let me see what he got. And he used to go in and out of different styles for about 2 hours. And I would just sit, because Randy used to tell me, late Randy Pennington, he said, Chuck is real good. Well, I saw him pose on the stage, so I knew he could bang, but I didn't know he could solo as good as he could. And I used to sit there, man. I used to leave the house, and I used to think to myself, man, this dude is cold-blooded. I wouldn't mess with him, John Murphy, or Kearney. Them cats, powerful, man. They had, and you know what I like about Chuck, the late great Steve Williams, Ted Williams. I don't know about Worm because I Jerry's before my time. These guys walk light, but they carried a big stick. Like I never saw Chuck stick his chest out. It's about me or look at me, but we respected him. Everybody in the game. In fact, him and this guy, James, here's a guy you might want to interview too, James. Ricky Tidwell. He's one of the guys taught me in 7th grade. I always used to hear guys say, I want Ronnie Randolph They called Big, but I wore Ricky Tidwell and I want Chucky. They didn't call him Chucky. Chuck. I want Chucky. Wow. And I used to like, what is this? Because once I met Chuck, he's so mild mannered. I'm like, it was just haterade. You know what I mean? Because these guys would step out on the stage, girls would scream, and it's just like, there's a lot of envy going on. So, but I wanted to say this. Chuck, like Kearney, like Steve, and I guess Boogaloo Vic and Ted, they look good on the street, man. They didn't need lights. They didn't need hats. They didn't need gloves. They didn't need no stuff. These guys, like for instance, when I danced with them, Chuck, we do the domino too. Chuck would be in front. He came out first. Chuck would turn, bam, and everybody, boom, boom. It looked like pistons, man. Wow. You hear me? I mean, boom, 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 boom. It was cold. And I said, man, the Messengers, when I saw the Messengers, I saw them twice. The first time I saw him was at this recreation center he's talking about called Tasper. We call it Tassa for short. And Chuck didn't dance, Kearney didn't dance.
He wasn't in the group then.
They were okay. I was in a group called the Soulful Movements. Ricky Tidwell was probably the best guy in the group at that time. We were okay. So when Randy was saying in school, he said, yo, man, we've been square off against the Resurgence. I said, okay, well, I've seen the Messengers. That's what I'm thinking. I'll get to see the Resurgence for the first time. Man, they came out on fire by the Ohio players. And Chuck, tell them, like, all the bands, whenever they played a song, they didn't play it to the same cadence like the record. They would like Superbad. If you play Superbad by James Brown, it's kind of a fast cadence. Dun, dun, dun. But the band would play it like this. It was slower. You know what I mean? And you could get it where they came out on fire. Man, I was completely unprepared for what I saw that night for the Black Messengers. Wow. They were superstars. I could not believe what I was saying. They were so smooth. They had charisma. Them boys was polished. I said. And they did this move called the Genie, where they came, I don't know what they had done, but all of a sudden they lined up behind each other. They put their hands up like this. It was a commercial at that time. Remember?
The M&M.
And they did where the girls went, wow. And I was like, man, who are these guys? They did a classic move that a lot of these Boogaloo groups, I won't say ripped off, but the Messengers did this move called the Flower. It was all 6 of them out there. And all of a sudden they came together, they locked arms, and they started spinning around us. Oh, man, they did that. I was through. I said, man, these cats got to be the baddest cats in the game. Now, the Resurgence, with all due respect, when it came to the stepping, nobody could outstep the Black Resurgence. They were the kings of the steps. And whatever that style them Chuck them did, Chuck them was the king of that. I mean, it was the 2 best groups, in my opinion, in the Bay Area at that time, squared off. They did a one-on-one. That never been done before. The 2 best groups and squaring off one-on-one. In fact, Chuck, I don't know if you guys remember this. I think I told James this when we spoke, but not on camera. So I want to say it on camera. Chuck and Randy Chuck and Randy went twice. Chuck could tell you about that. But Randy went against Ronnie Randolph's late brother, Vic. And me and Randy saw this move on TV. Dick Van Dyke, the comedian, did. He had a thing like you wind up on his back. I don't know what you would call it, and he was like a robot, right? Like a toy robot. And they pushed him over and he fell and the dude kept going. You know what I mean? So Randy did that move against Vic. I don't know how he got on the ground. I cannot remember, but he fell over and he kept his arms and he cleared. And I said, whoa, it was cold-blooded. It was cold-blooded. And Chuck, I know I've told Chuck this. When Chuck and Ronnie Randolph went at it, I don't know if it was the first one, Chuck, or the second one.
Second one, probably.
Randolph came out. You got to know, here's what you got to know about the Resurgence. They dancing in platform shoes, Chuck, right? They go giant platforms. Like, how could you even walk in them, let alone step in there? Ronnie Randolph came out and he was sliding forward, right? And then all of a sudden he popped his leg up and he slid about 4 or 5 feet and his hand looked like it was going to come off and he stopped. I said, wow. It looked tripped out. I mean, man, and, I'm going back and forth. Look at Chuck, look at him. And it was like, wow, that was funny. And John and Larry Robinson, to me, this was the most comical thing of the whole thing. because we were teasing Larry on the yard a couple of days before. Say, Larry, you ain't gonna just do your normal something. Like, nah, I ain't gonna just do the splits. Well, Larry did. I call it choo-choo train. I don't know what it was. He was bent down real smart. And he was sliding his legs and he slid all the way across the stage because John was kind of coming out, like creeping out, and he got right up in John's grill, right? So John pushed him off, and Larry went back and fell into the splits. It was like it was a little routine. I couldn't stop laughing. Wow. Man, those guys were I'm talking about both of them. They had so much charisma, so much showmanship. When that show was over, it was like Ali and Frazier. You were like, no, this can't be it, right? It got to be something else. It was from start to finish, hands down, the baddest live show. And Chuck, no offense, that's even over the casket to me. That's the best live show.
Wow.
I'm saying
Hey, I love
it was
hearing
off the hook. Because I saw the casket thing. In fact, my cousin Michael Newsome, he was in the group called the Electronical Four. They were in the Bay Area. The guy, Paul Reed, is one of the guys that talks about, he says, Boogaloo Big, Boogaloo Shrimp, and those guys, he said, yeah, we was doing that 10 years ago. He was in the group.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's Ted Winter. He was in this group. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it was exactly. They see how Chuck them did that in the movie, and it was cold, dark up on the stage, right? So they had on green and white, and they had the white gloves, and they did that crowd with wow. And we all knew what it was. We called it the Eminem movie. I don't know what Chuck called it, but it was cold-blooded. It was cold. Man, them cats had so much charisma. So much charisma. And like I said, no strobe lights, just a stage and them lights and a band. And they tore it up.
I gotta ask, because man, first I wish I could go back in time. I wish there was footage that we could watch these battles happen, man. Like all I have is what you say, and I can only imagine it in my head, but I know I can never see it. So I want to ask Charles and also Vic, what were some battles that you saw during your time that were like you'll never forget what you saw? If you could share a story of someone you saw, you battled with, maybe you or someone you just.
You want to go there? Go ahead, Chuck.
Go ahead,
Chuck.
Vic. You go. Let me think, bro.
What do you guys try to do? I feel like it's a setup.
Whatever you feel, whenever you feel you want to comfortable, whatever you want.
Okay, I mean, I can call on a lot of good battles and a lot of times where I danced, and the people that I danced, the memories, the history is golden. Now it sounds like you want me to share, so yeah, there was a story that I brought those guys out here, and one, we were promoting the movie, and there were a few times they came out here, and the last time they came out, they went to Kezar Stadium in San Francisco, and we met them up there. Everything was all beautiful and good until the little guys started talking about the Bay Area. What's this? What's this? What's this? And this is the first time he's done it, because he's done this like a few times. And each time you do that out here, you're going to have to answer to some people about it. Michael Chambers, that's what I'm talking about. There was a guy that I met prior to that. His name was Darwin. He was a Filipino. And Darwin was running through Union City and Fremont. And everyone was telling him about meeting with me and learning things from me. Darwin, I gave, I had him to come with me to this one event at the Kezar Stadium where Shrimp and Shabadoo was. And Shrimp started talking wildly about the Bay Area, and he and Darwin had a past. They lived in Carson City together. I mean, they were like mortal enemies. And Darwin was also one of the Blue City Blue City Strutter students as well as Shrimp at this time. So, you know, they had it for each other. Darwin was kind of like already like, man, I can't wait to see him, you know. He was going to call him out, you know, and everything. So we got upstairs in this stadium, and Shrimp started with the what's this and what's this, and the crowd was going crazy, and he was like in the Bay Area, this and that and other thing. Darwin turns around and starts dancing against him, you know, and the crowd goes wild. And then the second person that I was with was Damien Frost. He gets up and he co-signs it. And the crowd goes crazy because we're in San Francisco. A lot of the guys in San Francisco starts losing it. Then I got up and just, it was all over with. By the time I finished dancing against them, the next day I was told I was no longer a part of the magazine because I danced against the celebrity. So pretty much they blackballed me, you know. And for me to sit here and say this is my truth. This is my my story I'm sharing. You know, I smashed that cat. He was very highly upset, and Shabba-Doo was pissed, and so he told the magazine he would no longer do business with them as long as I was a part of the magazine. So that's that. But now I spent a lot of time dancing with a lot of people. That's just one story I can tell, you know. But I mean, ask me, man. You know, I'll just share with you. You know, I'm a little bit kind of like a little nervous about it, but you know, hey, it is what it is, man. And I have the receipts.
Right.
You know.
What was your relationship to? Okay, because I'm a little confused. Was your relationship to Shabba-Doo and Shrimp, or was your relationship to like?
Well, we had a magazine.
Okay.
We had a magazine. It was the first hip hop magazine in existence, and Shrimp and Shabba-Doo had the #1 dance movie out. You know,
Right.
And it was being promoted. We were some of the first people early on that started helping promote it, and that also goes as well as with Electric Boogaloo as well. It was my idea to bring them out here.
Okay.
I met the guy, two guys from the magazine originally, was the chief and editor, and I guess you might as well say he was the president of the magazine in San Francisco. So I used to go to San Francisco a lot. Here go another one. I used to go to San Francisco a lot, and every time I would go up to San Francisco, we'd pretty much clear the wharf. Me and my whole crew.
Wow.
And so when we would start dancing, there was a lot of people that really felt our talent. You know, they appreciated our talent. You know, and this guy comes over to us and he has us a card and he says, you know, we'd like to interview you and all this and that, and you know, if you can, call us. And so a couple of days later, I called him, but I also gave him an idea that I had about bringing the guys out from the movie Electric Boogaloo and Beach Street and having them dance. And he told me he can do that. And I mean, I was shocked when he first said it. I was like, whoa, what? He was like, yeah, we can do this if you can find a spot. I said, I got a spot. I'm a rep at this club, you know, and I'm gonna talk to the manager. And I talked to the manager, and he felt like, yeah, right. So yeah, if you can make it happen, okay, we can let it go down. Now here, this is where we get into a really interesting part of the story. He says, yeah, if you can make that happen, go ahead and let's get that going. So I set it all up and was going back and forth between the club that I was repping at and the magazine. And the night that it happened, we got the Hilton Hotel in Newark. It had just opened 2 weeks, and we got I think it was the 2 top floors. And we brought in all kind of dancers from the movie Breaking, and some guys from Beat Street, Blue City Strutters. Word got around without any flyers, any social media, anything. Thousands were there.
Wow.
And this club was overwhelmed. The security was in jeopardy of it being out of control. So when we got to the club, well, first off, and we were all at the hotel. And for me, at the age, I think I was around 17, for me to have put this all together, all that time, my nerves or the butterflies in my stomach, and I'm sitting in this hotel room with these guys that, out of the blue, they're supporting me and they're doing this for me. They got these 2 floors of the hotel, and they done flew these guys out here, got limousines and vans and all that. Yeah. I mean, it was a really big to-do thing. And we all meet and greet at the hotel. I mean, the moment when Shrimp and Shabadoo walked in the door, I was just, boom. It was something else. And me and Paul, rest in peace, the youngest brother to the Blue City Strutters, we hit it off like brothers. We were really cool. We all gather up and go downstairs, start getting in the limousines and in the vans and stuff, and head over to the club. And when we start pulling up in the club, the crowd is overwhelmed. It's hard to get into the parking lot. There's thousands of kids, thousands of youngsters everywhere. Wow. Because of word of mouth. So we get to the front door, and they're looking like, whoa, you really did it. Yeah, I did, And the security guy comes down. He's like, man, we can't handle this. The head of the promoter, the main DJ was Joseph Sims. We also called him Commander Video. He used to skate at Lake Merritt in the early years in Oakland. So he was from Oakland too. But he came to the front where the cashier was, and he was like, man, we can't handle this. We can't do this tonight. And I was like, man, you're going to really just, kill this opportunity. You're gonna flatline this opportunity right now. Right. And he's like, yeah, you can't come in. They didn't want to let us in. Wow. Right. So we're standing in the front, and I'm so ashamed. I'm so embarrassed, man. My heart just dropped. And Shabadoo looks over at me. It's a little print, but it's fine. That man looked over at me, and he said to me, how much is it to get in? I said, $5. He pulled a big knot out of his pocket, a big wad, and he threw it on the counter, and he said, let's go. And about 30 people walked in that club. They walked us into the crowd. People were snatching us, grabbing at us. They sat us at a table. And they said, DJ, he comes down. This guy's from the movie. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, whoa. And he runs up to the booth and he says, our special guest tonight, the guys from the movie Breaking. Turbo and Ozone. And the crowd goes crazy, and they got us sitting at the table. And right after they said that, pretty much 5 minutes, they said, we can't handle the crowd. We got to ask you to leave. Damn. So we left. And I went into the front of the club where I felt like, wow, they just took that from us. Wow. I said, there was a bunch of people following us out there. I said, I got out the limousine sunroofs and I said this. Anyone that wants to come with us over to the hotel and party at the hotel with us, you're all welcome. We emptied out the club. Oh. And the whole parade of cars went from Fremont to Newark, California, to the hotel, and we filled up the 2 top floors through the whole night. This was an activity of celebration of Los Angeles and the Bay Area coming together. Wow.
Has there been another moment like that in history of LA and Bay coming together like that?
Well, at that point, they started developing relationships. Now, at this time, you got Pete sitting inside Shrimp in one hotel room, Shabadoo coming and going, Sugar Pop, the Booyah Tribe, and there's people left and right, and they're trying to show them their talent. They're trying to share their talent with them. Right. And while they're showing them their talent, these guys are telling them, yeah, we're going to put you in the next movie. We got a 3D movie coming out, and you can be in the next movie. You can go on tour with us.
Oh, like
and
promises.
So this is going on all night long. Yeah, and they can't tell that they weren't doing that. Even Pete told me, yeah, Pete, I'm gonna have to say, you my boy and all that, but I got to tell it like I remember it. He said, man, at one time I lived in Oakland. I said, man, you lying to kick it. You know what I mean?
He said he lived in Oakland at one
time? He said he lived in Oakland, you know, and I told him that, you know, am I wrong for saying this? This is 30 years afterwards, you know. Am I wrong for saying this? Do you remember saying that to me? And he's like, I'm like, okay, right. Because at this point in time, we're going back and forth with the where did it come from? You know, what was ground zero? But yeah, there's a whole lot of those stories.
Wow.
Shabba-Do, rest in peace. You know, growing up, watching him on Soul Train, and he also coming with that Cab Calloway impression at the time. You know, we tuned in to Soul Train, and Shabba-Do is one of those dudes. You know, you tuned in until it was somebody else that came and took his place. You know, there was guys all the time, excuse me, that were talented on the show and that you were looking for. But it's like feeding yourself spiritually. You know, you're seeing someone with a talent, you're scoping and checking out their talent. You know, and you might soak up some of their essence.
Right.
You know, on this. And yeah, I got a lot of these stories, man.
Wow. No, that's a big one already, what you're sharing. The relationship between, you know, Break-In, LA, Electric Boogaloo's coming to the Bay Area, that whole thing right there is wow.
You're the first person I've shared that with publicly.
Wow.
Like,
yeah. Wow.
You know, yeah, there's a whole lot more of that. You know, I have been a fan of this art form forever, to the point to where I was 601 at 12. And that's incorrigible. My mother couldn't get a hold of me. I couldn't focus. I couldn't pay attention. We were in school. When I was in third grade, coming through Webster, I had a teacher, and she used to let us push the desk aside. We would bring records to school and get the audio equipment from the audio visual room, and I would be that guy to go get it and run it and roll it all the way back to the portables over there where we were in our class, and push the desk aside and we start dancing, you know, getting it in, and that's when it was real nasty and nice, you know. I can go into where I was at Prescott in the early years, remembering, like I said, doing the dominoes,
right,
and watching my cousin vibrate. I had two cousins that lived in Alameda, Buena Vista housing, and across from them were the Bullocks family, which I to understand that was mostly a lot of the Derrick and Company. So my older cousins, prior to moving to Alameda, they lived in Oakland, but they were known for this dance. And I would watch them come out of the room. They would blast like Earth, Wind, and Fire or something like that. Aretha Franklin, whatever, you know. And I had a girl cousin. She was like Shields, you know, before I even saw Shields in Yarnell.
Wow.
And she, boom, you know, just had that it factor. And so I took from her. My other cousin, Tim, he was more fluid, and he had the legs. He had the character. He was like really with the faces, with the character. Like I saw, I guess that was Iron Man Milton, and he did the eye thing, and when I saw him, when he did that, it reminded me of my cousin. I was just like, whoa, blown back.
Wow.
Yeah, man. I got a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff.
Okay. Charles, I want to tune in to you about a battle or something. Yeah, what was a battle you witnessed that you were
Uh,
like, wow, or that's crazy what they're doing, or
Well, let me say this. When me and Will Randolph went against each other, right?
Mhm.
Okay, we go one round, we go the first round, right? He's on the side of the stage cussing. Fuck this! I want to go again. I want. But yeah, we the only person that night danced against each other twice because he wanted to go again. But the battle I seen was Kearney getting Ricky. That was one of the coldest battles. Well, it was like Kearney was just up there soloing,
Mhm.
and Rick was hanging over there by the speakers doing his little booty move. So yeah. Uh, and then another time before that show, it was Vincent and and Rick going at it again. So Casimir had a dance. So when I walked in the dance, I happened to be in the right place at the right time when they started dancing against each other, right? And I'm like, oh shit.
Mm.
Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, that one, them sees the other one. Oh, this one.
Mm.
We was in the talent show, right? And so Donald Jones danced with us, right? He flipped off the stage. So John had to go down one side of the stage, and I had to go down the other side. So we had to go down there because we was lifting him up, right?
Mm.
And okay, we lift Donald Jones up, so he take off back up the stairs to get back up on the stage, right? So Larry and the Black Resurgence, he was in the front row sitting down. So
Mm.
we in the talent show, mind you, and all of a sudden he come out, he want to dance against John while we in the talent show, right? So
Mm.
that was that was a bad choice.
Wow.
Oh my God, John must have tore that ass up. And
Damn.
I just stood there because there wasn't nothing else for me to do because we supposed to lift Donald Jones up and go back up on the stage. But I had to stand there and watch them two battle.
Mm.
I said, oh man. So what was happening, John, everything Larry was doing, John was doing it, wrapping his arms around in the front, flipping and stuff. Yeah. So I just stood there and watched it. And then when he got through, we just turned, went back up the stairs and finished the routine.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Even the way the battles were, it wasn't like it's so different now. I
Yeah, it
feel
was
like
different. Yeah,
yeah.
because say if you at the high school, right?
Mm.
And they got a basketball tournament.
Mhm.
And the mascot's supposed to go out, right? But then you got so many boogaloos in there, they all gonna come out. You
Mhm.
just ain't gonna be dancing against Calcimont or Fremont mascot. You're gonna be dancing against boogaloos from Fremont, boogaloos from Calcimont. They all gonna be running out there. It
Wow.
was crazy.
And it's like a
Yeah,
free for all. It's like
yeah,
one
yeah,
person dominate the one
yeah.
person.
I remember,
Yeah.
I remember me and Kearney went up to Calcimont, and the Black Crusaders was up there dancing, right? So these guys from Brookfield, they didn't like the Black Resurgence, right? They couldn't stand their group, right? So a whole bunch of them ran up there, started snatching their beavers and stepping all on. So I say, Kearney, I say, let's go up there, bro. Let's go up there. So about time me and Kearney got up and got to the stairs to go up the stairs, the music stopped. Ah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Oh, we was on our way.
I got one.
mm.
Right here's one. Like you're saying the differences between that era and popping.
Mm.
So we had little areas that we would go to, and it'd be a lot of kids there. When you saw a popper, and you knew when you saw a breaker.
Mm.
I had a number of cats that would come from other cities when I lived in San Lorenzo, would, or Sally Andrew actually, would come to my hold on, would come to my house. I lived, well, my apartment. I lived in some apartments in Sally Andrew, and we had rec rooms, and we would practice in the rec rooms. So there were kids coming from Berkeley, there was kids coming from Fremont, there were kids coming from San Francisco. Every day they would get on that BART. Can I get that battery, please? This is going dead. They'll get on the BART and come over to my house and practice with us, you know. And then one day particularly, they come over. Yeah, we're going to go to Berkeley, man. Let's go to Berkeley. Lo and behold, they were setting me up for a battle, right?
Okay.
And I'm happy-go-lucky. I'm cool with everybody, you know. And I get to this university area, and this guy walks up to me, and it's a whole crew of them, you know. Yeah, you know, it's time to get down, you know. And so what do you want to do this at? Let's go over to the pizza parlor. We go over to the pizza parlor, start dancing in there. Crowd gets thick, you know, but it's overwhelming. The pizza parlor, the guy, get out of here, get out of here. So we go to the front of the building, and the police tell us, you can't stay here because the crowd's getting even bigger. Got to go down the street. So we go to the corner, and there's some phone booths down there, as I recall. And the crowd we're on the sidewalk, and it's starting to get so big that we kind of move out towards the street. And it's a four-way intersection. Police like, you can't dance here. Take it over to the university. By this time, I look around, there's like hundreds of people walking behind me, right? Then we go over into the university. By the time we start preparing to get into the university to battle, as I looked around, there was thousands.
Wow.
And I've never, ever even thought about it until it was mentioned to me almost 30-something years afterwards that, you know, this had happened. And I was like, whoa, you're right. You know, I never even took that for granted or anything. This is just the normal. This is how it went down for us. Yeah. So as I was getting ready to get in a battle, I'm looking up. There's guys hanging in trees.
Wow.
There's people on balconies. I mean, they're everywhere, right? Trying to see this battle. And this was a major to-do that I ended up getting to know about. There's a guy, Fantastic Melvin. He is considered the number one on, I guess, that side of the bay, and his assumption was that he was number one, period. And my assumption that I understood and knew, and I'm coming from Fremont all the way down towards Milpitas. And my understanding is I was number one, right? So at this battle, it went down, man. This guy comes out, and Melvin was known for this contortion styles and moves. And we're in an era where we're doing a little too much as teenagers, right? I do my thing and come back to the crowd, and the thing that I do to him, I don't see you. I'm the baddest dancer on the floor. There's no one else better than me. This is my mentality coming from the club onto this here situation right here. I go at him backwards, upside down. I've never done this before, but I'm in the head on it. You know what I mean? We come like that, right? We even catch ourselves off guard sometimes with some of the things we do, right? And I'm upside down, backwards, swimming at him with my legs, you know, bent, you know. And as I'm swimming, I'm worming and waving. So then I take my head and I roll it around. I've never rotated my head and left my chest in the area and then after I did that, the chest flipped. Then the legs flipped. And by that time, the crowd went crazy. So then I pick myself up, and fell back the other direction. And then turned back around and wormed all around the dude and came up. By that time, it was just bottom line over with. I retired him.
You retired?
Everybody I pretty much danced against, I retired. They were very bitter about their whole situation. I was always off the cusp. I came off the floor of the club, And with that being said, the pressure is so great because you're in front of so many people. Felon is not an object. I mean,
Right.
not something that you want to do. You know what I'm saying? Just the DJ used to look down at me and and he say, what the? Yeah. And when he throw that record in, man, and get the mixing in, it's like, okay. And with that being said, put me in a position. So I got to give it up, right?
Right.
But in the club scene, it's a no-no because it's a security risk. So you start dancing, the crowd builds. Now I got to grab this guy and kick him out. And they tell me, you're going to be out for 2 weeks, but very next weekend, I'll be up in there again. I became like a spoiled individual in the club. It was a known thing that was my house. And if people wanted to get some, they could come to my house and come get themselves retired quick. Because I take you over by the speaker, and I got the speaker in my ears, and I don't hear nothing else.
Wow. Wow.
And one thing that used to really upset people, I mean, because I had all kind of little gimmicks about me. I wouldn't look at you really. I'd be like this, and by the time I look up, it was
done.
It was a done deal, and that music would hit me. I mean, this has been in a club, It was just nasty. They would bring all kind of people, as far as from Chicago, LA, come dance against me. I would have cats that were selling dope, and they would bet money.
Wow.
And say, hey, my man, I've had man, I hate to put these things. I've had very high numbers bet on me that I ended up finding out, and I was like, whoa, I had no idea. Oh no. They believed in me that much. Wow. I had chances to dance in Vegas. I had chances to dance in Tahoe. I've had chances to dance before cameras, videos, and it's just not me.
Right.
Where I get this from, I like to keep it there. I don't want to lose that. When I saw all the evils come in before, I got a chance, an opportunity to let any Hollywood agent or manager or any type of individual like that come around me and squeeze that out of me and then dry me up, and then I'm no good. I haven't taken this with me throughout. I'm gonna have friends be like, see, out here in the Bay Area, we got cats that they'll be like, man, you still doing that? Yeah, you still doing that? Yeah, nobody doing that old mess no more. Yeah, I remember that, man. That boy over there still trying to hit them old moves. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It was frowned upon, but that was something that I also don't believe in. You can't put a cap on what we do at age. They didn't do that to Sinatra. They didn't do that to these guys who were tap dancing and doing ballet at 50 and 60, 70 years of age. They let them dance until they couldn't dance any longer.
Right.
They told us we were street dancers. No, we're not. We're dancers, period. But we dance the way we do. And we've been dancing like this for quite some. This is our history. This is a part of our pride. This is a part of our culture. When we used to get together and have cookouts or Thanksgiving or whatever, your aunts or your uncles, hey, tell that boy to come on in here and show us that move. So I remember one Thanksgiving, my cousins and my mother and them got me to dance in front of my great aunts and my grandmother. My mother told me, take this aerosol can. It was Aquanet. And she gave me a lighter. She gave me a can of Aquanet and a lighter. And she told me, when you get over there, do your thing and then stop, pose, hit the lighter, and then spray it.
Wow. That's
what? I get to play with fire? So I said, boom, boom, boom. Right?
Wow.
And
that's
my
crazy.
aunts and them, they were just, they threw themselves back, man. Wigs was flying, It was something else, But I was just a little bitty guy doing that,
Right.
And didn't know where it was coming from.
Wow. I want to go into the mindset because I know you mentioned, Vic, you were sharing how, like you would look down and when you look up that it was done, or
Mhm.
just the mindset that I'm the best in the room, I'm the best in the club. I want to
The
ask
baddest on the floor,
the
and there's
baddest on the
nobody else
floor.
better than you.
Nobody else. I, I want to ask again, Tony Newsome, Chuck as well. Well, two questions. How did you practice? Did you use mirrors? Did you just dance? Did you just was there certain ways that you went about practicing the dance? And then my second question is, what was the mentality when you were competing with someone else? And I know you shared a little bit, Vic, but if you want to go more deep into it, we could give it to Tony if you want to share first.
Well, let me say this. There's a couple of questions in here, and I just want to kind of clear this up if I can. They asked, is the beaver a type of hat? Yes. You had the Stetson, the Godfather, and beavers. Now, there's other hats.
Mhm.
The messengers wore straw hats, but the beaver was a certain, in fact, the street guys, the thug guys, they wore beavers and they were different grades. It was 3X, 5X. Personally, I couldn't tell the difference between a 5X and 3X, but if you had a 5X, it cost more money and it gave you more clout, because they would say that's a 5X, as opposed to a 3X. And the Godfather hat was huge. It was a big hat. But Bryce also asked, is William Randolph and Ronnie Randolph, they're the same person. His name is William Ronnie Randolph, but most people call him Ronnie Randolph, or his dance name was Penguin, because Chuck will tell you he had this famous move he did called the Penguin. But anyway, I just wanted to chime in on something that Vic was saying. I saw Chuck. You remember little Victor Lattimore was in our group? The guy that used to come out on a motorcycle or mini bike, whatever he was doing. I saw him smoke another guy in our group named Jermaine. We went over to Jermaine's house, and Jermaine, the way their house was, they had a garage, but it was like turned into a semi-bedroom. It had a record player down there, so we was down there, and Jermaine put Jungle Boogie on by Cool and the Gang, and he started. It was me, Victor, and this kid Philip Moses. And he wasn't really challenging Victor, but he was like looking at him and posing. And so Victor just got up and started working him. And man, I'm telling you, by the end of that record, it was so lopsided. Me and Philip Moses could not contain ourselves. We burst out laughing. And Jermaine knew we were laughing at him. You know what I mean? And he got mad. He kicked his eyes out. Get out of my house. He was real upset. But Victor had tore him out of the frame. I mean, he tore him out of the frame. And Jermaine's mother, her name was Doris. She was a good-looking lady. If you ever seen Pam Grier and Foxy Brown, that's how Jermaine. Good-looking lady, had an afro. She was fine, and she was our quasi. She wasn't really our manager, but kind of like our quasi manager. So when we were brought the late great Steve Williams to come audition for our group, we went over to Jermaine's house, went down into the basement. So we said, "This is Steve, and we want to put him in the group." She said, "Okay." She said, let me see what you can do, baby. So she said, what you want to dance on? So Steve said, I pretty much dance on anything. So she said, okay. So Steve said, do you have Jungle Boogie? So she got Jungle Boogie. She put it on. And you guys, you know how Jungle Boogie starts out. Get down. So Steve waited until the music really started playing. So he did like 3 moves, right? So Jermaine's mother, about the second move, she said, ooh, he's good. So Steve did a couple more moves. She said, oh, he's really good. She said, Newsome, I thought you were good. I had no idea she felt like this one. She said, that's enough, baby. You in. She took the record off. So she brought it back, Steve, and I got to tell you this. When I first met Steve, we were over at Horseman. I knew who he was. Larry had pointed him out to me. And so this guy, Philip Moses, lived right down the street. And he said, hey, man, we're going to go down to the house and play some records. So a bunch, about 6, 7 of us went down there. And he had a basement. So he was putting James Brown records on. Excuse me. And Steve got up and started dancing, started soloing. Man, we was all sitting there marveling at him. So about the second record, I said to Steve, I said, hey, man, would you teach me how to dance? Now, Larry, his younger brother, had been teaching me, but once I saw Steve, I'm like, no, this is the man I need to be studying under. So Steve said, yeah. So Horseman was way far from Frick and then way far from where I live. So I was on my sister's bike. So I was walking the bike, we were talking. So by the time we got to Frick, Steve said, where you stay, man? I said, oh, I didn't want to, discourage. I said, oh, just a little bit further up here. So went up the hill, got to the house. So we had a rug in the living room, right? So I said, what you want to dance to, man? So Steve said, you got Razor Blade? Vic, have you ever heard the instrumental Razor Blade?
I was just getting ready to ask you, Razor Blade.
I didn't know what it was, right? So this is 45 era now, James. So I don't know. I'm flipping through the records, and all of a sudden I see this vanilla label 45. Something said, flip it over. I flipped it over, and it said Razor Blade. Put it on. Right? So I said, is this it? So Steve said, yeah. So there's Chuck, you remember that breakdown where it said, do, 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 do. Steve had this move where he would hump his shoulders and he would swing his feet real fast. He went back on that rug, James, like he was on the street.
Wow, on the rug.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was so cold-blooded. He posed. So I was just trying to mimic what he was doing. About the third time, he looked at me, he said, Newsome, you catch on fast.
Nice.
And I took that as a compliment, like, wow. So I'm Steve would come to school every couple of days. Every couple of weeks. And he would say, Newsome, I got some new moves. New steps. He called them steps. I got some new steps.
Nice.
Man, I'm still trying to learn the steps from 2 weeks ago. You know what I'm saying? Nice. So my crew thought I was the bomb. All I was doing was, in today's terminology, I was a sampler. All I was doing was watching Steve and trying to incorporate as much as I could of what he was doing. I did not know how to make up moves and none of that yet. So I would watch Steve. Nobody could dance to Steve's cadence. He danced super fast. But after I learned how to try to like pose and do his move, I would just take his moves and put it to what I was doing. Man, I had so many moves. And then when Steve moved on, I was in 8th grade, he was in 9th. When he moved on, and I got in the 9th grade, I really didn't know what to do. Because the guy that I was getting my moves from was gone. And I didn't know how to make, Larry was gone. I didn't know how to make moves yet. I had these old moves I was doing. I couldn't keep doing the same moves. So I had to, that's when I first really kind of sort of learned how to create my own moves. And like what you were saying, you had to see these people. I would put on a record that Ted told me he danced to. And I would just try to get into that mindset. Right?
Okay, the mindset. Okay. That person.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is all I know to do. And I told a story before, but since this is a whole different audience, I just got to tell a story real quick. In my bedroom at night, when you open the curtains, it looked like a mirror. So I could see myself. It wasn't a mirror, but so I remember Vic one night, right? Chuck, this is what I would do. I saw this guy, Henry Fisher. He was a robot. But I saw him come down the line I shouldn't say Soul Train, on Soul Is, on Chuck, Bobby Womack's I Can Understand. And you know how fast that beat is, right? You wouldn't think you could do that. And this dude, he would screw his head and he would creep. And he would screw his head and he would creep. And I said, man, that's cold-blooded. So I would put that on. I'm trying to do Fisher style. I saw Steve get out on his James Brown style. I'm trying to do Steve style. So I was dancing to this record, which in my opinion, is not even a Boogaloo record. It's called, if you put it in, go to YouTube, Spirit of the Boogie by Kool and the Gang. To me, it's not a Boogaloo beat. So I put it on and I did this move where I can't do it that way. I like stepped into this pose, right? And I used to have this red robe that I used to tie on because Ted wore a trench coat a lot of time. So I had my red robe tied and I stepped into this move, right? And Chuck, for about 2 nanoseconds, I said, that looked like Ted. I said, I'm keeping that. You know what I mean? So I would go on and on. And I'll tell you, when I really first think I was starting to get into because Chuck said when he first saw me, I had a little baby dinosaur thing going. When I really kind of got into it, when David Bowie put out Fame, how slow that beat is. I used to do this thing, right? Where I act like I was putting a rope around myself. And, I got into it. That's when I started to really focus on that, if you want to call it animation, what you want to call it, I don't know what you call it. But anyway, the point is, when I would practice, I would get into the mindset of whoever I thought I was trying to be like no, how do they do this? And I got to tell you this story, Jay. I'm gonna get out of the way, but this I got to tell you this: the night that the messengers and the researchers went one on one, Ted Williams, my idol, was outside, and there was as it looked like a school day. That's how many people could. The show sold out. That's how many people outside milling around who couldn't get into the show. So out of the show on fire. I was with a buddy of mine, Joe. He didn't buy his ticket. He couldn't get in. And I started not to go. And he said, no, don't go ahead. When I came out, I was looking around. He said, yo, Tony, said, what's going on in there, man? So like Michael Jackson. And I'm trying to explain, yo, man. Ted was out there. So I saw Ted. I said, man, can you still dance? He said, yeah, I can still dance. I said, I want my mother to see me. I said, just come to my house. Let her see you down there. Said, right? So we went up to my house. Actually, we had stopped at my best friend's house first. And Ted saw somebody in the house that he knew from the street. And I guess he didn't want them to know that he did this because he wouldn't come. First, he was going to come in, and we saw this guy. He didn't want to come in. I don't know what was going on. Anyway, went to my house right around the corner. And I said to Ted, I said, listen, man, you know you're my idol, right? He kind of, get a little sheepish smile. I said, I want to get down for you, man. I said, but I want your honest opinion. He said, all right. So he was sitting on the bed. So I got my robe out, and I put on AWB's Schoolboy Crush. And Vic, you know how slow that. So at first, for like the first 30 seconds, I was a little jittery. But then I got into the zone. I don't know what happened. I forgot about everybody was in the room. I just started going. So when the record was over, man, I took the record off. I sat down. Ted was on the other side, sitting on the bed. Because me and my brother used to have the same room. And he was moving out of the house about then. I sat on the bed. I was sweating a little bit. I wiped my hand. So I looked at him, right? I said, check it out, man. I need you to show me some moves. Chuck, the dude was staring at the floor with this, like, almost like he was at a funeral, right? He never looked up. And he just said, you don't need me to show you no moves, man. Chuck, I heard the Rocky theme. That moment right there, my idol signed my diploma. I didn't care what nobody said. If this dude said I had skills, as far as I was concerned, I had skills. You know what I'm saying? Because I saw him. I knew what that meant. And I knew how arrogant he was. I thought he was going to say something like, yeah, you look like you got a little better, or something like that, just to kind of like,
wow.
He gave me my props. And from that moment on, man, when I got at the Castlemont, when I would get out there in front of I didn't care. Because my attitude was, you know what? I'm certified now. You know what I'm saying? Wow, you see that right there? Hey, you remember like picked up that thing and it burned them thing? I'm Shaolin. Right. I don't care what y'all talking about.
He gave you more power, huh?
You know what I'm saying? Not an arrogant thing, but I'm just saying it's like I remember. And then when I met these guys, like I said, when I saw the messengers, because I never seen no group tear it up like that. And I remember one day on the yard, Randy just came up to me and said, Noose, you want to get down with us? I leaped at the chance. To me, it was like playing for the Lakers in Showtime. When I was at your peak, I was like, yeah, man. Definitely. And I didn't know what to expect. And I remember we went over to Chuck's house. And so we went into the bedroom. Chuck was sitting there. He might have been doing his martial arts or something. And I said, you the brother came out the casket on. He smiled. He said, yeah. And after that, we just knew each other. We was tight.
Wow.
Never had no issues. Never. Chuck used to come to my house. I used to come to Chuck's house. We used to watch each other get down. Chuck used to show me the old school. And, Chuck is responsible for me learning a lot of history because, see, they lived on a different side of town than we did. So their style was a little different than ours. We both was boogalooing, but they had a different style. We had a different style. So we got to see how they roll. They got to see how we roll. And then Chuck fill in the blanks with me certain things. Like I never heard of Lil Rick and these people. And I'm telling Chuck, oh, Mignon and Steve was cousins. They're like, what? I didn't know that. So and now here Big shared another whole thing with us. But my point is, this is how, in my opinion, you got rounded out. Because, see, I'll tell you what I'm against. And I'm going to say this on here. I hope I don't step on nobody toe. When these people jump in front of the camera saying they invented stuff, and it's like Vic was saying, like for instance, Bryson here said the slot, which John Murphy was famous for, he said they call it the Fresno now. Well, see, if nobody doesn't know, they say, oh, there's such a thing invented the Fresno. Well, he or she may have invented what y'all call a Fresno, was a cat back in East Oakland named John Murphy that was doing that a long time ago.
Mm.
So, you know what I'm saying? It's just keep it in contact. It's like, man, most of this, like Vic said, most of this stuff you guys are doing is it's a hybrid of what we in a generation before us and that generation
Well, a
before
few
us did now.
generations before, maybe more.
You know what I'm saying? And it's nothing wrong with that. I'm not one of these purists that like, oh, you got to do it this way. But I just say it like this. If you don't know the history of this dance, you guys have missed out on a lot.
But
Because
now,
yes, the
hey,
styles that you
I want to just say this. I don't hold nothing against nobody. I actually am a fan of shrimp. I am a fan of Poppin' Pete. I'm a fan of a lot of dancers. Uh, I just have to, when somebody asks me my opinion or my truth, just respect that I'm telling my truth and my giving my opinion, just like Newsome is giving his. We're trying to give opportunity to give you an aspect and a look into our history, our truths.
Of course. Yeah, everyone has their own view of a situation or an event happening. So it's good to hear from multiple people that were there to share. Well, what did you see? What was your thoughts going on? So, okay. Charles, I want to ask you as well the same question of how did you practice and what was your mindset when you were battling or competing with others?
Oh, how I used to practice. Okay, I didn't have much room, so it was more narrow than width wise, right? So I was in there, I'd be in there practicing, and how I know I was getting good. My buddy little brother came over to the house, and he said I was practicing, but I stopped when somebody opened the door and come into the room. He said, "Go ahead, Chuck, let me see, let me see." Okay, so then I just put the record on and I started moving. He was like, "Ooh." Yeah, that's how
What?
I know. Yeah, that's how I know, I was getting there because he was going crazy.
Mm.
Why
Hmm.
Tony Newsome was saying what he was saying? You said you danced to fame. Chuck, would you have
Hmm.
ever danced to fame?
Fame, dun, 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 there's no tomorrow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You would have
Yeah,
danced to that? You would
yeah,
have danced
yeah.
to that?
I was working with Kearney and David. We was doing a routine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we was coming out. Okay, so before we did the routine, I said, man, we should do this on Fame, man. So this,
What?
yeah, so Kearney had got sick.
Uh-huh.
And so me and David, we at the studio and we practicing and said,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we was doing that. Yeah, yeah. It's gonna be tight. Shit.
So there's a
Mm.
lot of music that Chuck tells me that he'd be like, no, I wouldn't dare dance anything like that.
Because
Fame is kind of like at the beginning of
that
popping.
slow, funky kind of
Mhm.
Yeah.
Fame and
Yeah.
then, you know,
That's like at the beginning of popping. So there's a
yeah.
lot of music that when I hear, it reminds me of a certain period of time. And
Mm.
like I asked a lot of people, what did you call it then at that time? People need let's think
Mm.
about that. Some of you OGs out there, when you heard flashlight, what did you call it? When you heard the sun is near, what did you call it?
Mm.
I can go on and on and on. Out here, we called it Boogaloo. You
Mm.
know, uh,
Yeah, we hit on a different beat. You know, poppers, they some of them they jump around and they on a faster beat. We no, and like San Francisco, Richmond, they speed the music up. You know,
that's
you
when they're
know,
doing a lot of the group movements.
yeah,
You
yeah, they
know,
speed it up. We ain't never did that. We ain't never did that. We stay on the beat. We find the song that's the beat. Like when Tony danced with us, I told the group we should come off a slide in the Family Stone.
ooh,
Wow,
Sex
wow,
machine.
wow. Yeah, Sex Machine.
Sex machine.
Yeah.
But the band played it way better, Chuck. In fact, I didn't see
Ugh.
Chuck is a little older than me. I never heard. I knew who Sly Stone was. But Sly was one of the funk masters. I mean, if you go back and listen, Thank You and all that,
Of
they were
course.
funky. Well, Chuck said, let's come out on Sex Machine. Chuck, in fact, let me just say this. Chuck was like, I'm trying to think of the word, the creator. He could vision stuff. Chuck said, man, we should dress like this. This would be cold. He said, we should come out on Sly Stone Sex Machine. I didn't know what Sex Machine was, but I didn't want to say nothing, you know. So I'm sitting there like, what is Sex Machine? Well, when I finally heard Sex Machine, because they played with a keyboard, the band played it better to me because they played it slow and it was more with the bass. You got what? Oh man, Chuck. So Chuck said, man, here's how we should come out. He said we should come out, step, turn, drop our heads like that, and then turn the opposite way. The next one come, and man, the crowd went wild. As a matter of fact, Chuck will tell you this. The night we danced at Castle, we came up the stairs, came around. It was a back curtain. Curtains were open, but it was a back curtain. We came around that back curtain and we came around, right? So Chuck was holding the curtain like this. These guys that were in the show were acting like groupies. They were all over the back. So Chuck told him, he said, yo, get back. It cracked me up. I wanted to laugh, but it was serious. I couldn't. So we was getting ready to come out, and I didn't know, Chuck, are we supposed to do 5 or 6? And before I could act, Chuck dropped the curtain, and the band said, dum, 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 and Chuck stepped out, turned, did his hit, and the crowd up. So I'm like, oh, it's gonna be just like the first time they danced with fire. We're finna rock this place. And we did. So when we came out, we were supposed to guillotine, do, like this. And I didn't know if we were supposed to go 5 or 6 times. So when we got to the 5th one, I said, I'm just gonna wait. And if anybody flinches, go with it. So I think we did it one more time. Boom. And by then the crowd was going crazy. So then they switched from Sex Machine into something else. And we did this. You'd have to see this, Jay. I don't know if you guys ever see it, Vic. I don't know if they did this in your era. There was a sitcom out in the 60s called The Monkees. They had this
that
called
walk.
the walk, where they would put their legs over each other like that. Chuck said, man, we should do that. So we did that. And the girls went, wow. You know what I mean? And from then on, like I told Chuck,
Wow.
I was so excited and pumped up. I don't remember everything was happening. And then we did that flower thing they did, but instead of us facing each other, we had our backs to each other, and they were playing a Larry Graham song, and we were doing our heads like this, but we were sliding around. And that's when I finally got relaxed and was like, I could kind of enjoy this thing. So when we got ready to go off, the last thing we did, we domino, boom, 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 and we start sliding off. Everybody had their hands at each other's side. Kearney was trembling. Oh, that's the other thing. I'm going to clear up. When you guys hear trembling and vibrating, that's pretty much
Same thing.
Okay.
Same thing.
On our side of town, we call it vibrating. On Chuck's side of town, they call it trembling. Well, Kearney was trembling, vibrating when he was doing it so hard. He was behind me because he was the tallest. I was like next to the tallest. Kearney was trembling so hard. I said, watch, his hat is going to come off. Excuse me. And right before he came upstairs, boom, his hat popped off.
Wow.
And the girls, so we came off the stage. I told Chuck this before. When we came off that stage, and Vic, I don't know about you, I had forgot how hot them lights are on the stage. We were soaking wet. Those lights are beaming down, and I was like, Chuck, how do you guys do this, man? Chuck told you just get up and you start doing your thing. Don't think about it. But I said that to say this. Larry Robinson, who has to be, if he's not the most egotistical boogaloo in the history of the world, he's in the top 3. You feel me?
That's the nature of the beast.
He was leaned up like this, Vic, against, it was a red. When we came off the stage this way, like coming toward him, and Larry was, because they was coming behind us. Larry was leaned up against the rail like he was saying, okay, I just see what they did. I know what we finna do. And at that moment, he looked up. My eyes locked. And this is what Larry Robinson did. I'm Larry Robinson. Came off. He was looking down. Larry looked up. He said, So we crushed it. I said, I know we hit this out of the park, baby. When Larry Robinson gives you a thumbs up, you rocked it.
Wow.
And Chuck, I told Chuck them this before. I don't like saying this. Maybe I shouldn't say it. But something happened that night. Chuck and them don't remember it. I remember it, Jay. I bet you deep down, Chuck and them said, "Don't making this up. Vic, this happened. Listen." Ronnie Randolph's them band stopped midway through their routine. Chuck and them don't remember it. I remember it. I was standing there watching. They were doing their thing, and it was like the band was just saying, "Y'all ain't got it tonight."
Damn.
And they
wow.
Trust me now. Feel me, Vic.
Hey, on top of that, James, are you listening? They had bands.
I'm not making this up.
Wow. Right. Live music, right?
They had live bands backing them.
Wow.
Ronnie Randolph looked back like, what? And he looked back and said, hit it, and they started up again. Well, by then, in my mind, it was a wrap.
Damn.
It was like, no, we got him. You know, I don't care what nobody say. We got him. And then I'm saying, on top of that, Larry, you guys would have to really appreciate a guy like Larry Robinson. He's the alpha and omega in his mind. You say, Larry, who's the baddest? Name one of the baddest boogaloos in history. Barry, me. You know what I'm saying? That's who he was. You know, it's another guy in the Messengers who name was the same way. But the point is, when he did that, I said, wow, we tore it up tonight. So when we came off this, after we slid off, we was following Chuck. Chuck came around again, the back curtain came around, and Chuck went to go down the stairs into the audience. The crowd was up on the stairs on both sides. They came up to the stage, and they was holding up their hands. So I remember, I reached down with just shaking, like, hey, yo. And I was sitting there thinking, holy smoke, I see how these guys are like rock stars. And they were. I mean, they had people love, and these guys were never, ever, ever, ever arrogant. They were humble, blue, like Marvin Hagler in boxing, the late great Marvin. Not like, Money Mayweather. I'm the baddest cat that ever walked the planet. They were humble guys. Wow. They never tripped off their fame. And they had it. They had
it's a sport.
You know what I'm saying? The Messengers and the Resurgence were kind of arrogant, to be honest with you. It's about us, we're the baddest cats out here. And they begrudgingly gave the Messengers their respect until they couldn't deny them. It was just like, no, you guys got to admit now, these cats is cold-blooded. And one other thing, here's something that really blows me away, James. Boogaloo Vic kind of alluded to this. When Chuck appeared, by the way, Chuck, tell them the story about how y'all went from the Black Messengers to be called the Mechanical Device so people know. But let me just finish with this. When they appeared on the Gong Show, there was no social media. And yet you got a gazillion people saying they watched and was going to be on that show. It's like, how? Like he said, there was no flyers. There was no word just spread. If we had social media back then, I bet you they'd have had over 10 million hits by now. Maybe more.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
They went from being the Black Messengers, no makeup, no wigs, doing anything like that. And then they came with a whole, like you thought it was a whole other group.
Wow.
To the Mechanical guy. Chuck will tell you the story better than me, but the point is, we didn't have social media. We didn't have YouTube. And we had that stuff back then, and people seen some of these cats in their prime. Pat Scott, probably the baddest female boogaloo in the history. Chuck, would you agree with that in the Bay Area? Pat Scott?
Yeah.
It was cold-blooded. She's on that trailer. It's a chick. It says 1972, and you just see this chick worming. That crazy good. That's Pat Scott. Wow. She was fabulous, man. A lot of cats said I couldn't get on her. She was cold-blooded back in the day. I mean, when I saw it, I said, Chuck, is she in high school? Chuck said, no, Tom. She was in Elmhurst Junior High when she was doing that. She was really good. She was super advanced. I mean, so the point I'm just saying, now, you, like this guy saying, the Fresno and that, don't be fooled, you guys. People are relabeling stuff, but a lot of this stuff had already took place.
A question I had, I know you mentioned about vibrating and trembling, how it's the same thing, just said in different areas. When did you hear of the terms ticking and strobing? And
well, see, Jerry what they were calling ticking. Jerry called it clocking. They called it clocking.
Interesting. Okay. And what
Yeah.
was clocking? What's
The
that?
same thing. They would tick, 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 tick. You know how they tick, 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 tick. Yeah. So yeah, they called it clocking. Yeah.
Interesting. Was the word strobing used, or was it not as common? Or
No, see what you would use as strobing, it'd be like that would be like vibrating or trembling, you know,
okay.
because you're trying to look like you under a strobe light.
Right, right. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. What about now? Because I know it seems at the moment, at least right now, animation seems to be a hot topic within the popping world as well. But also, I feel animation is becoming separate from popping. Like it's starting to turn. People are starting to be interested in that style instead of waving or tutting or popping. Or people are just getting more specific with that style. I wanted to ask, what did animation, when someone back in your era, your time, when someone was animating, what did that mean?
That means you're trying to be a creature.
Mm,
You're trying to be like Seven Voyages Sinbad or something. The monsters on there. Yeah.
oh,
Animation. Yeah.
okay. And Vic, would you say it's similar? It's like when someone's animating, it was they were imitating the Sinbad and
For popping is part of it. I mean,
mm,
to be unreal, to
Hmm.
to create an illusion in my mind and do the best I can at giving you that impression of where you can pick that illusion up in your mind and
mm,
you see what I'm giving you, what I'm selling you, what I'm showing you.
mm,
Uh,
mhm.
Animation can fall. Uh, you can turn a lot of things into animation. Starting in the early years, watching TV and being inspired by those television shows or cartoons or whatever.
Mm,
But also miming played a part of it. So you had people that were doing miming, incorporating walking down the elevator
Yeah.
or whatever,
mhm,
imitating mannequins, imitating toys. Uh,
mm,
you know, uh, I would just find myself in like a moment, like it's like I said, it's kind of almost like spiritual. Like you get in this moment,
mm,
and to me, boogaloo and dance, you can't restrict yourself because if you do that, you'll get yourself ate up on the dance floor, man. But
mm,
you have to your thinking. It has to be open. Your uh, mental. It has to be. You have to be creative in the head. So you
mhm,
can do all kind of sorts of things and end up animating. It's no telling.
mhm,
I've seen people animate their fingers.
mhm.
You know. You
No.
know. It depends. But we are led by what was before us. And Harry Hauser, however he said,
Right.
the guy with the movies there, was a big inspiration. And he did the stop and still. When we
Mm,
were kids, they used to have us to take these books, these papers, and you would draw in each part of the papers and then thumb through them and make it animate. That
right.
was another aspect how he was getting things.
Mhm.
I mean, I could just go on and on and on with that.
Right. Okay. What? And I
Hey,
know.
Jay, let me
Yeah.
jump in here and say something real quick, just off what he said. That's where the motion picture business came from. They
Mm,
took those little, just what he was talking about, and they got to where they had a camera that could, instead of, it would take so many clips per second
mhm.
so
Hmm.
that it looked like it was continuous, but in reality, it was these little movements all put together.
Right.
Stills.
And when, in
Yeah.
fact, I saw a movie, man, a documentary about Charlie Chaplin, because Larry
Mhm.
told me, Larry Williams, Ted's younger brother, that Ted got the lean from Charlie Chaplin. I don't know if it's true. But anyway, the reason I bring
Come
this up,
on now.
no, that's what he told me.
No,
Now,
I know.
uh, Charlie Chaplin, one of the last movies he did, because remember, he was a silent film star.
Yes.
One of the last movies he did was called Modern Times. And at the end of the movie, his character started talking. And that was his way of saying, I see what's coming, but I ain't feeling it. And he got out of the business. You know what I mean? So
they don't consider him a mimist, but he was.
You know, a lot of that stuff that he did, a lot of people were doing it. Like you said, we're like renaming it and all that. But I wanted to say something about what he's saying about that with the, you know, taking that, you draw so many pictures and you flip them, and it was like you have somebody running or whatever they were doing. The same kind of thing, not to that the way he's talking, but that's how I practice. If you want to call, I don't like whatever the style, animation stuff, and then flow with it. In fact, Chuck, I got this from Ted. I saw him do this move, right, where he posed but he bounced. The first time I saw that, and like he would do his hand like that.
The bounce.
And the first time I saw him do that, I was like, whoa, that's cold-blooded. You know what I mean? So I incorporated that into what I was doing. So people never saw Ted, but they saw me, and they said, oh, Newsome do this thing with his hand. I got that from him. I didn't make that up. I mean, I saw him do it, and then I just added little different things to it, you know, over time now, not, you know, in the beginning. So I'm just saying we all were because like Chuck said, one of the things he liked about our group, he said, Tony, y'all humped y'all shoulders. Well, on our side, that's what everybody did. They humped their shoulders. So even though you didn't steal it from Boogaloo Vic, you saw him do it, so you started doing it. You know what I mean? And it was just like, it was just, when I first started Boogaloo, you had to be able to spin your head. You had to be, we called it wiggling. Chuck them call it worming, but you had to be able to do your body. You had to be able to move your hands, and you had to be able to creep. That was mandatory. Somebody be known for their creep. Somebody be known for their pose. Somebody be known for their, like the late great James Miller. That dude could, we call it wiggling. He could worm. That dude had a cold blood. He like a Pat Scott kind of. If you watch that trailer of Boogaloo the Untold Story, near the end, when it gets into the last part, you hear this. In fact, I asked Bryce about this. There's a song playing. It's an old it's an old Sly Stone classic, Sing a Simple Song. And it's playing in the background. And then they start going through the years, 69, 70, 71, 70. And when they get to 72, they just show this girl, and she's just worming. And it's Pat Scott. You know what I mean? And so I'm saying, and that simple song is playing in the background. Yeah, 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 yeah. And I remember, I never thought anybody could Boogaloo to that. And I'm watching them like, I meant to ask Jerry, what were their songs? Because we used to like to get out on James Brown. I mean, James Brown was our guy, right, Chuck? When it came for the Boogaloo, everybody. In fact, Chuck has I don't know, Chuck, if you still have it, but you had an old remake version of James Brown, doing Superbad. It was real slow. And he would say, watch me. I told you once. And I never heard that version talking over Chuck's house. I said, Chuck, where you get that? And I forget where he told me you got it. But the point is, we got down to James Brown. If you couldn't work it on James Brown, you probably wasn't going to get no respect. Because everybody was working something with James Brown. You know what I'm saying? That was like one of the, like Chuck said, they used to get out on Superbad on his side town. See, Superbad. Now, Steve probably could work Superbad. It was too fast for me. I liked the song. I could party dance to it as a kid, but not Boogaloo. And Jay, just one other thing. The first time I heard the late Aaliyah's, so Chuck, what is that? So when she say, first you don't succeed.
I try again. Okay.
Yes, I said, Steve would have tore this up. This was a perfect Steve Williams beat. I said, man, I don't know who this is. I didn't know who Aaliyah was at the time. I just heard the song, and I said, man, if that had came out back then, Steve Williams would have tore that up. Because you know, you can see certain people, you just know their style, and you know it will work. You know what I mean? It's like, I never saw Kearney do this move, but I know Chuck could do it. I used to do it. Ted did it. Albert did it. Maybe Jerry too. But you'd have on like a maxi coat, and you flip the collar up. You would turn so that this part would be covered, and you get your Dracula creep on. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen Kearney do that. I guarantee you, when he was young, he could have done it. Chuck, I used to do it.
Ooh, dark
Everybody had it. I'm
shadow.
saying that was a basic move. You had to be able to get your Dracula on. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh,
Yeah, that was
nasty.
Right? It
that
was just
that was
certain things as a boogaloo you
I love
had
it.
to be able to do.
yeah, that was Albert's move.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's like
Yeah.
What?
now, and Jay, I'm saying this stuff is like a faded art. It's
Hmm.
gone. And it's to me, it breaks my heart. I'm like, if y'all had seen, let me just tell this last story, Jay. I told it before, but I didn't tell it to this audience. We're on the yard. I'm in 8th grade, Frick Junior High School. School is out. It's a Friday. So somebody said, oh, Steve said, late great Steve, he said Albert, meaning Iron Man. He said, no, he said Iron Man. He said Iron Man turned out Fremont with the dragon. Wow. I'd never heard this name. I was like, who is Iron Man? How he dance? So I said to Steve, I said, what is his real name? Steve said, I don't know. He said, everybody just call him Iron Man. Right? So he said, Steve said, Fremont giving a rally. So Ted was a senior at Fremont. Now I'm in 8th grade. He's 4 years older than me. Steve's a year older than me. He's 9th grade. We going to Fremont. My idol's gonna be up there at the rally. We going to rally. So we get up there. We get in there. The band is playing. Henry Fisher, the class, I call him first generation robot. Okay. Fisher's playing the horn. I didn't know he could play the horn, Vic. I'm like, Henry Fisher's in the band, you know what I mean? They said he ran track. He was a real versatile guy. So Fisher put the horn down. Chuck, he tried to come out. It was gone. The magic that he had was gone. Chuck will tell you how cold-blooded this classic move he had called the typewriter. It was cold-blooded. It was gone. He had no business out there. Well, long story short, the band started playing, and it's an old James. If you go to YouTube right now and you put in "Kool in the Gang" by Kool in the Gang, it's an instrumental. Kool in the Gang had really funky stuff, and all that stuff hadn't come out yet. They used to be a jazz band. They were just turning to pop funk music. So they had this instrumental called "Kool in the Gang" by Kool in the Gang. And I remember this distinct beat they were playing. So Larry Robinson came out, he started swinging his hands, so we was just kind of stood around semicircle, like, okay, any minute he's going to do the flip and the split, because we knew his routine, right? So Steve was just standing there like there with the rest of us. So this girl, Terry Harris, good-looking girl back in the junior high, she came up behind us and pushed Steve out on him, like, what you letting him get off for as bad as you are? So she pushed Steve out and Steve posed. So Steve started moving, and within 3 moves, he repeated the same move. I was in shock, like, what? So Ted was standing there, right? So Ted reached in, grabbed Steve by the back of his pants. He slid him back. He stepped in on Robinson, and when he stopped, he did his head around like this, and then his head got smaller because he had his collar up, right? And that sucker, man, he bowed to him, Vic, but when he did it, he bent up like something. Bent his body over. He bent over and he posed like that. And the crowd, ooh, and Robinson, the king of egomaniacs, Larry Robinson, stop. Vic, you remember the old cake cutters? He reached back. Yeah. He had an afro there. Larry started combing this row. He said, that's Ted. We bust out laughing. Because we was like, we wanted to see Ted smoke him. Like, keep going, Larry. You're not going to win, but just keep going anyway. But he didn't stop. And so Ted stopped. But I found out later they had already battled. And Ted told me, Jay already told you the story, but again, this is a different audience. Ted, I don't know how it happened, but they got up on the stage to go against each other. Ted was on one side, Larry's on the other. So Ted's side, he said, I crept out. He said, I was watching him the whole time. He said, because I know he do that flip and all that stuff. So get this, bit. Ted took a page out of Donald Jones' book. He said when he saw Larry was getting ready to do his flip, he took his hand and reached over like he flipped him. So Larry went to the stretch, and then Ted reached down and pulled him up. He said everybody just burst out laughing. Larry was so embarrassed, he stopped. And I asked Chuck this point blank. I said, Chuck, do you believe John Murphy would have stopped? Chuck said, no. I said, I don't either. Now that tells you how bad Larry must have felt. He stopped. And I asked him one day, out of curiosity, just to hear what he was going to say, because he was a sophomore in Fremont when Ted was a senior. Then he transferred to Castlemont, where him and Ronnie and them graduated together. I said, Larry, who was holding down Fremont when you was there? He put his hands to his chest at me. I said, you couldn't get on Ted. He said, no, I couldn't get on Ted. I was shocked he said that. But he said it. I said, whoa. So, and I'm saying he got that kind of begrudging respect because he tried it and it didn't work. You know what I'm saying? And so he had to just say, yeah, nah, I shouldn't have messed with that dude. And I did. It didn't work out. So I'm giving this man his props. Because I'm telling you, man, in my opinion, if some old school Boogaloos came out right now, the way they marvel at some of these guys, if Ted Williams was in his peak, he could fit in any area right now.
Man.
You know I mean? I'm not saying he can't do that style. I'm saying the style he had, it would be cold-blooded. They put him up on YouTube, and people see that, and be like, whoa, what is that? And he throw that lean on him. Chuck, you see him lean when he was an old man. Tell him.
Yeah. We had left the audition at Hamilton Talent Show, right? And so it was Ted and a bunch of them up on the hill, right? And so I don't know, we wasn't going that way. We was crossing the street, and we happened to look up, and all of them was standing up there, and so we was looking at them. So Ted started hitting some moves, and that motherfucker leaned, boom, right? He was leaning and shit, and then he just leaned farther. I'm like, oh, shit. And then he blew up his chest in like a four corner. So when he blew it up, boom, 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 and then when he came back up straight, he put it in, boom, right? I was, oh, shit. Yeah.
You know what's funny is in popping, no matter what you did, it always came back into the Boogaloo. You know, it's like you can do stuff within that move, but they didn't understand it. By the time you finish it, then what you did was you was boogling. You know, and let me say this, James. In my era, boogalooing and popping is exactly the same thing. There's no difference. There's no separation. It was just a different time, and the younger crowd was calling it another slang term, you know. But we always understood, no matter what city you were in, that this is all boogaloo. No matter what city in the Bay Area, we knew this is all boogaloo. Everyone gave it its own little kind of co-signing name to it, you know. And what I'm finding interesting as I hear all three of us talking, we were all supported. And Chuck, he ain't really spoke on this yet, but we were really supported by our mothers, you know. And I just really find that really neat. My mother, she was taking us over to the Vintage Inn on Seminary, and we used to practice over there. I got into a talent show one year, my first year of high school, and that was the only group that I ever participated in. And she used to let us practice at home. She never let anybody over the house, you know what I mean? So that was, you know, to me, like, wow. She appreciates me doing this. So she would take us over to the Vintage Inn and practice. And I can't remember where else she would, you know, she just put it in us, you know, gave it to us, you know, she would give us little tips and ideas of what we should do with our routines and stuff. I just find it fascinating that Tony's mom was involved, and I know Chuck's mother was involved with his, because he told me his mom actually drove him all the way out to the Gong Show, to Los Angeles to get on the Gong Show. You know, that's mother love and mother support. Right. You know, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shout out to the moms, man. For
real.
Hey, Tom, remember this? You, myself, and Randy was walking down, going to my house, and I said, Tom, I said, they go Albert. You say, when? I say, across the street. I say, you want me to call him over? And he came over, and he was talking to us, Tony introduced himself. He said, "Oh, you the one stole my bird." Remember that? He said, "You the one that stole my bird." But that dude started moving. Oh man. Hmm.
As a
How
matter
did
of fact, that's a funny story that Chuck is talking about.
Hmm.
When Albert came down the street, I heard all this stuff about him, man. He's a legend, icon.
Mm.
So I put my hat, said, "Oh man, it's an honor to meet you." So he said, "Yeah, okay, what's your name?" So I said, "Tony Newsome." He said, "Oh, I heard of you." He said, "You the cat I heard stole my bird." Now at that time, I did not know Albert had this move called the bird. So I
Hmm.
said to him, I said, "Well, my brother, if you're gonna steal from the
Steal from the
best." I
best.
said, and from what I said to Chuck, I said, "From what I told, you're the baddest cat around here." And so I looked at Chuck, right, Chuck? So I laughed. Yeah, because you would talk about people, and then I would always say, "Could he get on Al?" And they kind of looked at you like, "Nah," like Al was up here,
Wow.
like in fact, Ronnie Randolph, Penguin, admired Jerry Rente. That was his boy. Ronnie patterned himself after Jerry, but Ronnie would tell you point blank, say, "Ronnie, who you think better, Albert or Jerry?" He said, "Albert."
Wow.
No hesitation. Just like Steve and Ted, there's only one guy. Chuck told me, this guy, he was a robot, Ray Harris, Calvin Ray Harris. And he said he thought Steve was better. That's the only guy I ever said he thought was better than Ted.
Mm.
And well, yeah, it was better than Ted. I'm like, well, he's tired of spending. I didn't see it that way. Most people you ask, Larry and everything, they tell you hands down, Ted was better. Steve was cold-blooded. He was. Ted, in my opinion, was just at another level. He
Hmm.
could just do stuff the rest of us couldn't
Couldn't
do. In
do.
fact, Chuck will tell you this. When I got to Castlemont in the 10th grade, not all, I would say 95% of the Boogaloos were straw hats, mirror shades, gloves. They got that from the messenger.
Mm.
Mm.
And
But
I
we
didn't
wore,
know.
hold
I'm
on,
like,
What?
Tone. But we wore beavers too. We was
well,
wearing
no,
beavers
that's
before the
before,
straw
but I'm saying
hats.
y'all start wearing them straw hats,
Hmm.
and everybody started copying these cats.
In the
And I
mirror
didn't know.
shades.
I'm like, when
Wow.
did they start wearing mirror shades, straw hats? And
Hmm.
I saw them in that show. It clicked. I said, "Oh, they copied the method."
What's the bird move? You said that Albert did a bird. What's the bird?
It's like it's animation type, bird type, like out of one of them movies and shit that they had the bird, but they wave their hand like
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But as they doing that, they moving at you like animated,
Interesting.
Animation ain't we don't consider that robot and all that. We consider animation strictly monstrous.
Monstrous.
Yeah,
And
monstrous. Yeah,
animation
we
fell under
we don't it ain't no robot, what we
I,
no, it's
it.
strictly monstrous.
I.
animation would be under the categories, and they get this mixed up to this day. Now I went through this stuff: 3D in, ticking, uh, 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 even some aspects of vibrating. You can
Oh,
animate. As you
Mhm.
doing it.
Right. Right.
That's animating. Uh,
John, you gotta
I can't even
understand
get it no more.
it's how
I
it's
suffer
that
pain.
animation is like how you move.
Yeah.
It's a movement within inside you and
Mm.
how you moving, you feeling like this creature, yeah.
Yeah.
That's Tony,
You gotta feel it.
Ted and them guys, well, not so much Steve, but Ted and Larry look animated. Henry Fisher looked animated, in my opinion, and Kearney Maris.
I I
Those
don't think
guys look
Fisher
animated.
was Fisher could have been, the style of robot that he was doing, right? He could have been, if he wanted to break into that animation, like Sinbad type of shit. Yeah, he could have did that, but he
Right?
kept
Because
it.
when you
Yeah, he
looked at
kept it
his robot,
strictly
he wasn't really like
mm,
Shields and Yarnell robotic mannequin
right.
type of. It was like John Murphy. It was a fluid sort of. It was a robot, but it was soulful. It was fun.
See, it was
John
like,
robotic, but it was soulful. It wasn't
oh,
like
oh,
Shield.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
was soulful. It was really that slot and all that. John had a
See,
lot of
it's
charisma, a lot of style when he did his robot, and that's to me that's what made it look cold blooded. Ted, like I said, if you play certain records
mm-hmm.
and you watch how Ted Williams would move, it was really soulful, but it wasn't like say me and Vic is boogling, we doing a move or whatever.
Mm.
That's not how Ted rocked it. You know what I'm saying? When you watched him do it, I like to say it like this, Jay. They took you to an NBA game. You never seen a professional basketball game, and you go to 4 or 5 NBA games. And then one day, a kid named Jordan comes to town, and whoa, I ain't seen this before. You know what I'm saying? This dude is doing something. He playing basketball, but he's doing something at a whole nother level.
Right.
That was Ted Williams, in my opinion, with the Boogaloo. If they had that dude at his peak on film, Boogaloo Sam them would have never said what they said. Never in a thousand.
I'm gonna tell you, like, once you get into the best animation, once you hit that, it's like Nirvana. I mean, I had this Sinbad. Everybody had their own version of Sinbad.
Right.
It's like whatever character you correlated with. Mine was, I hate to say it though, was that lady when she came out, she just
right,
and she just boom, and her whole character, while she's doing that, her arms are doing something different on a whole nother rhythm. You know what I'm saying? One arm is moving faster, the other one's kind of moving at half speed, but yet she's, and that right there, it just man. But some people, they relate it to that the one that came out of the rocks. What is that? Jason and the Argonauts or what?
They came out of the ground.
The stone creature?
The stone creature. Right.
Right.
We had our characters that we kind of like pattern ourselves after, and
what I find so interesting, hearing the story of in Boogaloo, how everyone, like, you were looking at cartoons, you were looking at movies, you were imitating a bird, you're imitating a snake, a T-Rex. I find it just so interesting how now it seems that people just think of robot as animation. Like I think Jerry shared, he said a little bit about how because of popping and the influence, how it kind of took it in a certain direction. And and it's interesting because in LA, a lot of people that will enter an animation event, you'll see a lot of people doing robot, but they're roboting and they're hitting and they're waving and they're roboting back to robot. But it's so interesting to hear how you guys are like, nah, be this character, be the T-Rex, be the Pegasus, be the. It's interesting just how the expression of it. And something I wanted to ask, because I know, Vic, you shared about traveling to LA, the relationship with Shrimp and Pete. Was there anyone, or is there anyone that comes to mind that you felt held it down for LA? That was
man, come on now.
Who were
in the early years? Okay, for me, Robot Prince, and then when I saw Bop and Ron, I mean, even till this day, I see characters that are cats, I should call them. Forgive me, y'all. Cats out there that they're classic and their talent is just to be admired. But did I see a lot of the stuff that they have been doing or are doing now prior before all of this? Oh yeah, definitely. Tickle-Out is one of my favorite dudes. That's the homie right there. Nice. Classic. What it is you got to understand. You get to a certain point where you're just so connected to this art form. Moves is nothing. Yesterday was nothing. Today is nothing. Tomorrow is nothing. It's what you give at that moment, at that time.
Right.
And a lot of times when we're dancing, a lot of people from the outside have to tell you, man, you did this, or do you remember doing this? And you don't remember it. You don't realize that you've done this. You're just into it. You're getting into it. And then sometimes we find ourselves so in pocket, so caught up and connected, it becomes like you hit a moment of nirvana, right? And if you can hold on to it, it is a high beyond highs. Right. It is something that once you get into, you try to hold that moment as long as you can. And it only lasts for so long, being in the pocket. Like a lot of times for me in the clubs with the DJ in between a mix and him taking the instrumental or whatever he's introducing into the song, how the combination of the two will create this pocket of a moment of energy, and it's just like bam, and then you get off in it, right? And that's that charge. But you go into the music, then the song is playing, and it's only so long. Popping, on the other hand, where compared to the old Boogaloo, those guys will full dance your ass around the block and some. They go from one song to another song to another song. They don't get tired, and they got more of it. Right. The poppers, there wasn't none of that. Okay. We'll do a full song, man, and there were cats like me that we had thousands of moves in us, and you can just go. But like for those Boogaloos, man, that inner strength, that monstrous aspect, of creation. Right. I just wish that there were video footage or a glimpse into that, because what little bit that I caught, right, will definitely impress you for the rest of yours. Right. And that's what I can tell you about that.
Wow. Okay. My last question, actually, this will be the last question. I know it's been an amazing 3 hours of history, of knowledge, of all, which I'm excited for.
You can't rap it and do it justice in 3 hours, man.
I know. It's like we could keep going, but
and there's so many angles and ways of telling this story, right, and there's so many people involved. No one person created this. Yeah. But the vicinity and area where it pretty much come from is this Bay Area here, man. And that's real talk. From Oakland down to San Jose. That's for sure. And maybe some more.
I have, man. Okay, I got another question before I ask my final question. But it sounds like Robot Prince seemed to be a person that sticks out in LA, or was a highlight in LA. I know, Vic, you mentioned his name a couple times. Chuck, are you familiar or heard of Robot Prince? Is that name?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there? I guess how do you know of him, or did he represent LA, or?
Well, he was on Soul Train.
Okay.
He was a Soul Train dancer.
Okay.
So I used to see him on there. But
he's a robot. He wasn't Boogaloo or popping. He's robot.
Yeah, he was doing more miming than anything to me.
Okay. I mean, they're good, but I'm out of Oakland, so I'll see. It's a lot of stuff I already seen, done on a better scale. I look at Oakland Boogaloos, and with all that, you out there boogalooing, right? Boom, 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 throwing your hands and worming and stuff. And this guy come out on you doing this monstrous stuff, right? Looking like a creature. What would you do?
Like, what the heck is this? You don't know.
Yeah, that's it right there. What the hell is that?
What's funny is a lot of the stuff that you see him doing, I can honestly say, oh, you must have got that from somebody in Oakland. Yeah.
Oh, boo.
I'm saying, if I seen somebody and you doing something that looks familiar to me, not only do it look familiar, that's exactly the move or how they was doing it. And to me, you must have got it from somebody from Oakland.
My thing is, you never gonna do it like them cats in Oakland was doing that shit, cause that's them. They created that. You ain't gonna do that. That's like saying, he do Wing Chun like Bruce Lee. No, you don't. You do Wing Chun, but you ain't gonna do it like Bruce Lee, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And
Same
this isn't
thing.
we're not trying to have people come all after us talking about oh yeah, we felt this kind of way. No. We're just trying to share our truth. Yeah. And we're trying to be honest as much as we can share this truth, that to tell our honest points about our history and what have you.
Exactly. And you mentioned, Charles, you mentioned Boo. I've heard that Boo is the connection between LA and Oakland. Is that true?
Yeah,
Is there truth to that?
yeah,
One of.
Okay, one
yeah,
of.
one. Yeah. See,
Okay.
my little brother, he's from down there in LA, right? So he goes back and forth. He come to Oakland, he go back down there, and he done seen Tony Newsome, he done
Mm.
seen Kearney, he done seen Randy, John, he done seen a whole bunch of the Boogaloos, right?
Mhm.
So when he went down there, he said he was dancing, and they was asking him, "What is that?" They didn't know what it was.
Mm.
You
Interesting.
know,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, they didn't know. They like it's
Yeah.
something. It was something new
To
to
my
them.
what I've heard is that LA was doing robot unlocking. That
Yeah,
was the style that was
yeah,
popular.
down there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it was also up here in Oakland as well, robot and lock.
yeah.
Our
But I,
version of it, they don't talk about it.
yeah, they don't. You know why they don't talk about it? Because they didn't robot like how we robot down here in Oakland. Oakland robot. See, this is what I always say. Oakland
Ooh, now
robot.
we got to tell
You
truths.
you could you could um you could easily fall into that animation style. I don't consider robot animation, right?
Okay.
But the style that we was doing, for as like Henry Fisher back in his heyday, oh, he could easily fall into the animation style if he wanted to. Now, Albert Milton came to the Boogaloo picnic,
Hmm.
right? And he was demonstrating. He said robot just uh uh okay. Movement, right? The movement is just no. He's right. Animation ain't like that. Like I was saying earlier, it's something in you that make you feel like that when you're doing that. Like
Hmm.
it's hard to explain. Tell
Interesting.
them, Tone.
I wanted to say this because I'm feeling all this what both of us talking about. But here's something very, very interesting. I saw Boogaloo, quote unquote, in '73, but I already knew what the robot was.
Hmm.
So if Boogaloo hadn't come out, I probably never would have gotten the dance because the robot I thought was cool, but it's not something I wanted to do. So my point is,
Hmm.
the robot's been around a long time. So all you got, I've been at this, robot's been out forever. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So I saw Boogaloo. It was different. It was soulful. It was rhythmic. And I
Hmm.
said, "Oh man, I want to learn." Now I was a pretty good party dancer. As a matter of fact, my best friend Ron Davis in California, he's still alive now. He and I won best dance for the boys in sixth grade. We tied. We went 3 times. They had an elimination dance, right?
Hmm.
So they put on James Brown. We start dancing, and they would say this one, this one, this one, and it just kept eliminating until it got down to me and him.
Hmm.
He won one. I won one. They said it was a draw, so they called it a draw. You know what I mean? I won it at Frick, 75, best dance. Now, most of the cast was Boogaloo was gone. I was still doing it. When I got to Castlemont, I got it my senior year, and I quit halfway through my junior year. I
Hmm.
wasn't getting out no more. Matter of fact, I told this story before, but this was what was really cool. We were sitting in the class, and they were voting. So this kid that went to Frick with me, Michael Wakefield, he was a sharp dresser. He came from West Oakland. So we were sitting there, and somebody said, "Who's the best dressed for the boys?" And somebody said, "Michael Wakefield." So I'm like, yeah. So about 5 minutes later, this young lady in the back, she said, "Who's the best dance for the boys?" And this girl said, "Newsome." She said, "Oh yeah, that's right." I had quit. I wasn't even dancing anymore. And I thought, wow, this is so cool. You know what I mean? So I got it all three, sixth grade, ninth grade, 12th grade. And I really think, no offense, when I got into 12th grade, I really think that was from the brand I had built the first 2 years. They
Hmm.
saw me out on the yard. I got to dance with the messengers. So they're like, yeah, this cat, he deserves it because he's been around in the game a long time. And we seen him do his thing. So they, kind of, I'm a senior now, so they gave it to me. But I said all I to say this. That's not really what I wanted to say. I want to piggyback off what Chuck was talking about. Our variation of the robot. Like if you look at the dude in the
Right.
locker, the robot, that's not how we roboted. That's not how Henry Fisher roboted. But Slim's robot was cold blooded too, because he had the props and all that. We didn't robot like that. It was different.
Yeah, I wanted to say that so bad.
It was
Slim's
true.
robot. A lot of cats in Oakland looked down at his roboting, and for me as a younger individual to see the lockers, right? I was juiced, and then you waited for Slim to come out.
That's right.
But
you waited for Slim.
His robot was, quite honest with you, it was slower. It was slower than what these cats were doing out here. And I'll never forget, I was in the Acorns. It was 75, I believe it was, when I saw the lockers going. I think, was it the Don Kirshner or the Midnight Special? And they danced to Roller Coaster. And he came out, boy, I was so juiced. Oh, but then when he came out, by the time he got off, I was like, oh, man. You know, that right there, it didn't fare well with the cats that I was dancing with on the playground. How you got young kids, man, that can smash you, man? You know, and that's what I know, what I saw. Mayday Festival at Lafayette Elementary. I'm out of the East, but I'm staying in West Oakland at that time. You know, there's no locker or no Slim robot that can compare to what I'm seeing out there, right? You know, and then for me being another kind of a boogaloo, and I'm out there getting it. Oh, they was like, man, who is this dude? They came from all four corners trying to get me. They wanted to destroy my butt, you know. And after living in West Oakland in the Acorns, I moved to Alameda. And you know, this is beginning to creep into around 76. The Freedom Train has just left. We were in West Oakland. The Freedom Train just left. We're getting to Alameda, and you got Star Wars, Smokey and the Bandit. You know, to me, let's go back. Dance films. That's what juiced and pumped me like extra, right? And we were just talking about this the other day. What film came first? Thank God It's Friday or Saturday Night Fever? Thank God It's Friday is the first urban look in a dance film for me.
Thank God It's Friday. I want to write that
down.
Thank
God It's Friday is the first urban dance film. And that's for me.
And this goes before Break-In,
before Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta.
Okay. Friday.
These are two films, and one is a disco dance with a guy in there that's doing a bad impression and bad imitation of a lot of the dances we're doing in my community, the hustle. I mean, I go on and on. Let's not hear. I see Tony up there. Get up. But now look, thank God It's Friday for a person like me. They had a dance contest within that movie. And you say, oh man, the lockers, the person robot and all that, they gotta win. They gotta win this contest. But you know, the story is being told about the disco dancer, so the disco dancer wins. But the impression that a young person like me would leave is, yeah, the disco dancer won, but in reality, I wasn't paying attention to that disco dance. I'm looking at that person hitting that floor on that reel, and that was we just recently found out Alpha Omega, and that's Anna Sanchez. You know, that moment in that point in that time, the energy that they exude would kind of like feed popping, those types of energy, that fed popping, that movement. You know, I remember hearing Donna Summer's "I Feel Love." People say, "What? No." Blackbirds. What was that song? Rock Creek Park. I mean, these are songs in the early years that were considered like disco, that kind of like broke off into that long play, and it gave us that. You know, that's what you heard, and so you were trying to keep up with that. You know.
Wow.
That's the beginning of popping, man. I mean,
Wow.
I can go on and on and on with that.
Hey,
I
wanna say this too. With Henry Fisher robot, he's the only robot that did 5 moves and he reversed it. Each
Wow.
move he go through it like in reverse with him.
And what did you
No,
call it?
shit, I don't know. He was just every move he did, he just reversed it. He was
So he would
reversing
do
it.
it.
Yeah, but it was the Purina cat chow or something like that.
Oh, the creek.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
where he
that
got it
creek.
from the
You know how
Purina
that
cat
cat
chow
go? Yeah,
commercial.
everybody. Yeah, you go up and back, up
Oh,
and
the
back.
You hear me?
But
commercial.
I'm not
You
just
hear
talking
that,
about
Newsome?
that.
Purina
I'm
cat
talking
chow.
about
Chow,
I'm
chow,
talking about
chow.
his movement. He had hit about 5 moves, won't robotic, right? And he'd go in reverse with it, won't going backwards with it, right?
Okay.
Hmm.
I got
He
damn.
was cold blooded. Jay, let me just say this. He was cold blooded. Chuck is, see, they don't know, man. Like I said, we had film where they could see what we're trying to talk about. There's a beat right now. Jay, I'm Boogaloo Vic. I don't know if you could rock this, but Chuck, you remember uh Same Beat by the JBs?
Mm-hmm.
If you guys go put that in YouTube right now, it's all slow. So it's a the JBs live and back in the beast. Boom, 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 boom. And then it has a crow in there. I used to practice to that all the time because that was a Ted Williams beat. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
With that beaver looking real animated, just if they listen to
Wow.
our beats now, just like when I hear this electronic,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how are they rocking to that? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if they go back and listen to it, they probably say the same thing. Like, I don't see how these guys are dancing to that stuff. A lot of classic old James Brown. If you put a James Brown record on in the dance, you're gonna have about 6 or 7 cats out there boogling. You know what I'm saying? Because James Brown was the man. And everybody could get down to James Brown some kind of way. You know what I mean? Like we danced to Cool in the Gang, Jungle Boogie, we danced to this, but James Brown was the standard. You had to be able to get down on something by James Brown. You know what I'm saying? And it's just when I look at the styles now, it has changed all that. But I think back to our music, Jay, and I'm like, wow, how would we have fit in this era?
Mm-hmm.
We would have been like, in the Locker era, the first time I saw the Lockers was on Carol Burnett. And they danced to a song by Chuck, you remember Scorpio by Dennis Carter?
Right.
Dun, 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 dun. So they were doing all that. Then all of a sudden it said, dun, 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 and the lights went up. And Slim came out. He had this main thing. It was like, oh,
I remember
that's
that.
how we would look in this era. Like,
Slim.
wow, everybody's doing this stuff, but look what these cats from Oakland's doing. It would have just been a whole different thing. You know what I mean? Because we didn't, it's different. Everything evolves, and I get that. I'm not against evolution. But the stuff we were doing, like Boogaloo Vic said, like one thing that I really wish these youngsters would get, learn how to spin your head. I mean that sincerely, because back in the day, almost anybody you saw that was decent, excuse me, Boogaloo, they could spin their head and they could worm.
When you say spin, you mean spinning on your head?
No.
Spinning your neck, taking it around.
Okay.
And I'm saying Ted Williams, I never seen anybody could do it as good as him.
Interesting.
That brother could spin his head like nobody's business. And I'm saying it's a lost art, Jay.
Now this one guy, hey Tony, I ain't trying to cut you off. This guy, I think his name is Decoy, right? He dropped his neck. He nice with it.
That's my shit.
Yeah, he's nice with it. Huh?
That's my isolation.
Well,
the head roll and all
that. He be going around like this.
Stuff.
He's nice with it.
Yeah, he's nice with it. No, that's my stuff. I introduced that. Was nobody doing that before me. I was doing that in the early 80s, man. Man, come on now. And now I turn around and all these cats and they want to say, well, how did you do that, Vic? And how come you feel like you... Okay, let's break it down.
So here's I have
you want to hear the proof?
I got a question. And then I want to give the final question as well, just because I know the time running through it. But my question, so this is when I first saw this movement, head isolation.
That's mine.
The first time I saw that was on Mad Chad from the Step Up films. That was a movie that got popular. And then
Hmm.
from him, somehow I heard two names came up. I heard someone named Steen from Denmark, and then I and then and then I also heard Damon Frost would do an isolation with the head and neck.
Mm.
And
Okay.
mhm.
That's my that the head and then the chest and back, and then I'm 59 now, but when I was 13, because we were doing all this when I was 13, that was one of my signature moves. But now let me say this, so we'll get this understood. A lot of stuff that I did then would have been laughed at by the guys prior to me. Chucking these cats. I was doing that stuff as a joke because I met cats that were dancing in to me a watered down aspect of what we was doing. The moves is kind of a little watered down, bro. So I'm playing and toying with them. I'm not. This is a joke to me. So this is why I'm doing the goofy stuff. But the cats prior to me, they would have looked at me on the ground on the floor. They would. No, that's not what we do. All this goofy stuff that a lot of stuff we were doing, they would have laughed at.
Mm-hmm.
You would the 80s, a lot of the stuff that was happening in the 80s was laughable. Was very laughable, but that head isolation, that's one of my babies, and that's not it. That's not all. A lot of now, Bryce, I'm going to go deeper so you can get this now. I know you're watching. A lot of the finger movements, there he is. A lot of all this movement that came from me. All that I was doing in the early 80s, from the late 70s to the early 80s. My sister and her friends, they were coming home from school, and they would do things like this. And I took that and went, right? But that became all this. That when people, I saw, I'm not going to say who, but they took that from me. All of that. That all came from me. All that came from me. All this, all the finger waving and all that came from me in the early years. Before I started, people were waving like this, right? Let me. I'm glad you came. Where you go, Bryce? Don't go away.
He's still there. He's still there. His videos.
Where you going?
Okay. So look, before me,
you're leaving.
Waving like this, right? That was all they did, right? The worm will step out and it comes up, boom, right? Right? Then the waves, you had guys that were doing this. They would take your head and go, right? And that was the most of it. So I got into my head on it, and I said, man, I don't know, they call it trace waving now, but to me, I've said this before, I kept trying to figure out what would that be? That's more like a roller coaster, right? So, roller coaster, boom, 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 boom. And so wasn't nobody waving like that.
Was anyone doing waves where you go forward or back?
So this is another thing. I've been told this. The way, and I hate to keep saying me, because I know there was a whole lot of us that were waving, doing different types of way. We were all trying to approach it in a certain kind of way. I just seem to have success at selling mines or coming up with a way of waving that people paid attention to. I would wave from my feet up. I wave from within my body outwards. And there wasn't a lot of people doing that. Just simply was taking it and going this way. right? There was
Hmm.
the snake, right?
Okay.
Right. You had the snake, but then I saw some cats from L.A. Popping Pete or whoever was in Thriller, and then I saw the Sonic Waivers, Reginald Barbie, Eric Barbie, Reginald Barbie, and Anthony Russell. When I came out to San Jose in the early '80s, and the way they moved inspired me. So Reginald would always do this wave. To me, in my opinion, he wouldn't complete it. It would never complete the whole wave. And so I said to myself, wow, I gotta make sure they see the middle section. The beginning, the story goes from the beginning of the story to the middle of the story to the end of the story. That's how you have to tell it. And a lot of people simply miss the middle of it. You know, they go straight from the beginning to the end.
Right.
So I had to come up with the inner moving, and it was just, I'm kind of just, and you must incorporate your head down to your feet. You have to have character in your face. You know, you cannot. There's a lot of these dancers out here. They'll be doing the moves, and yeah, your moves look real crisp and nice, but you lack the character within your movement. You know, you lack dance within your movement, so therefore you look dry. You just look like you're doing a move. You really don't even look like you're enjoying it so much to me. I mean, I've seen guys, they do like take the balloon and they're walking around the balloon and, you know, and, oh, and but that's it. Give me more of a story to that.
Yeah.
Loading the gun, or using a gun. They always want to shoot somebody with a gun. But give me the details of that gun. Pick the gun up, crack the gun up, put the bullets in that damn thing, put it back together, hold that mug, and then shoot it, and boom, you know, give me some details to that. You see what I'm saying? Don't just do it. The dice rolling. I see a lot of cats on the dice roll. You know, give me some more details within that. Don't just give me a dice roll. You know, you know, give me something. I battled this one guy. I ain't gonna say who he is. I battled this one guy, and we were on stage, and yeah, I'll let you go first. But then I did the shotgun thing. Boom! And as I shot him, I floated over to him and dug a hole for him.
Damn.
Right? Digging that hole for him, but I put my foot on it, digging that hole, right? Throwing it over my back. And then I crossed my legs and I went into a spin. And as I spun around, I fell down into a prayer and started going.
Interesting.
And everybody lost their dang minds, man. It was over with. That kind of a finish right there, it'll retire a person. It'll retire a person. I'm a finisher. You gotta have a. There you go, Bryce. There you go. There you go. I mean, let me see. There's a lot of other moves that I made that
a move. Have you seen? Did you see?
Oh, rock wave. Rock wave. Oh, 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 oh. You know, rock wave.
Vic, did you see anyone doing like the wave, like when you like this?
No, well, that was a common thing. So for people that had tried to start doing that wave, they never had that middle section.
Okay.
They would do the wave. Hang, I gotta get more space out. Okay, so they would do the wave, right? And that's it.
They wouldn't breaking it.
That was it. When you see me doing it, you see the shoulders.
Right.
Right?
You
know. And then we was with the head, you know, coming out like that, you know.
Wow. Okay. Okay, man, I have so many more questions I want to ask, but I'm gonna stop it short for now. Maybe we could do a part two in the future or something, but we can talk about that another time. My last question I want to ask is, what's a message you want to tell the current generation or the future for people that are watching this video, this interview? What would you want to tell them? And it could be dance related. It could be just a message. It doesn't even have to be dance. But what would be a message you want to share for the audience to hear? And I could start with whoever want to go first, or
Any of my G's. Well, let me say this, man. I learned on my own. I did me. I was inspired, and I took those inspirations to do a better version of me.
mm,
Right?
mm-hmm,
I didn't pay nobody for it.
mm,
I didn't try to do anybody else's stuff. I learned with them. You know, no one person made this. So no one person can say that they created this and created all this and did all that. We all share a part in it. And there are certain individuals that people looked at and they admired their skills and they wanted to be like them
mm-hmm,
and dance like them. So they pick up a kind of a style and that kind of carries on. But my thing is just bottom line is try to focus in and very much is doing yourself and you only
Mm-hmm.
try to come up with the what God has given you, the spirit that you have dwelling inside of you, connect to the music and dance.
mm-hmm,
Okay. That type of thing there.
mm-hmm.
I would like to honestly see it last another 50 years because it comes and it goes. It's like it goes dormant. It's like the thing that all of a sudden now we can bring out. Okay, now we're bored. Let's just do something. No, man, this was our history.
Mm-hmm.
This is a part of what we grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it died and it came back, and it died and it came back. And each time it does, it gets watered down even more. I would like to honestly just now that we're in the era of immortalizing ourselves on YouTube and social media or whatever, that keep that original story alive, aspect alive, somewhat of passing it on like we're doing. Um, it helps keep this art form alive. That's what I believe. Let's not forget where we come from, in other words.
Right, right,
Okay.
right. Charles, what would be a message you would want to share with the future generation, the current generation, people listening?
Well, quit copying cats.
Mm,
Because when you get on here and you look and you seeing all these cats doing the same movement, they
Ugh.
all I just know we didn't do that back in Oakland. Everybody was coming up with their own concept and the way they was moving. And another thing, practice.
mm,
If you want to get good, you got to practice because you can take a move that you see and change it. You can take one move and make 10 or 11 moves from that one move if you know how.
right.
You know, that's all, you know, be yourself.
Be
Don't
yourself.
be a copycat.
Mm, What a Tony Newsome, what would you want to share with the current generation, the future generation?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you to this, James. This is fabulous. Boogaloo Big, an incredible story. I didn't really know, we talked, but it was me, you, and Chuck, but I really didn't know any of the story. And I would just say to the young generation, I promise you, if you had YouTube and Vimeo back then, you guys could have taken this thing to an even further level. There's no question about it. Because you would have saw the creativity that the generation before us and we had, and Boogaloo Bricks and them generation, and you could have incorporated all of that and just been at a whole nother level. And that's not to suggest now you guys don't have skills, you don't have talent, you have innovated our art form, but I promise you, if you saw some of the legends at their peak and you could see what they did, you could incorporate it, and you guys would just be that much further up the road. And so when I'm like Vic, I'd like to see this thing go on and on and on. You know, it's a beautiful thing. There's all kind of talent. The best talent probably hasn't even come out yet. So, kind of like Chuck said, stop trying to be a celebrity and study this thing, man, and get the fundamentals down and get quit trying to be a celebrity. You know, I'm Tony Newsome. I created this. I forget all of that, man. Learn the art form, and you won't have to worry about what people are saying about you because they're gonna be saying good things. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not trying to step on the new generation, but practice. Seek out some of the OGs like Boogaloo Vic and Chuck, and some of these other people, John Murphy, Ronnie Randolph. These people, Kearney Mayer, these people can add some flavor to what you're doing, man, because you didn't see it. So you kind of taking it and using your imagination as a substitute, which is great. I did that too. But it's good to have a context, and you guys really don't have it. It's not your fault. Right. And that's all I would say. And James, thank you again for this platform, letting us OGs come on here and share some of what we know that to be our truths in our time. Thank you.
Nah, thank you guys for sure for sharing your truths, your stories. You know, I do this because I'm fascinated with the dance and wanting to know. I mean, you know, I came from hearing about popping on YouTube, and that was my first like, what is this? And then I started going down the rabbit hole and finding out more, and until now where we are right now, where Bryce connected me with Oakland Boogaloo dancers. So I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to share this story. I'm glad that this is documented, so this people, for as long as the internet is around, people can watch this, and the history is preserved. I know Bryce is doing the documentary as well, so I can see the future, the next generation getting to learn this, and who knows, maybe there will be a rise again of the styles of Boogaloo specifically. And yeah, just thank you again. If there's anyone else that you know of back in the day that you want to hear their story, or you feel they would like to share their story, please let me know. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy bringing everyone together and to hear these stories. So I know Mark or Tyler, Anthony, you told me a little bit about Gaston. So if he ends up reaching out, I'd love to hear his story. If there's anyone else you guys know, you can, again, feel free to let me know. We'll set it up and just go back in time and talk. So,
hey, Bryce, let me just say this. I'm gonna try to put some. I don't know if I can film it or not, but I want to try to get my Mac Daddy lean on at 65 now, OG now, and just so people can see and go like, oh wow, look at that OG. He could lean pretty good. I had a nice lean back in the day. I'm way past my time.
Legendary.
Still a little bit lean.
Hey, Tone, tell them how you used to dance in the army boots when you was in ROTC.
Let me say this, because I know you got to go. Here's something that's interesting. Me and Chuck talked about this one day. The resurgence dance in those platform shoes. And that used to, I was talking to Chuck, and I said, Chuck, I don't know how them cats used to be getting down in them platform shoes. And Chuck said, Tone, they said the same thing about you. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you used to wear those military shoes. I was in ROTC.
Yeah. I heard about you.
I was in ROTC, but here's the thing. Now, see, Chuck, what kind of shoes did you wear?
Shit. Back then, shit. Biscuits. Well, they don't know what biscuit is. Stacy.
Stacy, yeah.
Yeah. Shit, tennis shoes. Some tennis shoes.
Okay, see, here's the point I'm getting at. It really didn't matter what shoes you was wearing if you felt like moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was in ROTC. Sometimes I had to wear my ROTC uniform, but then sometimes I would just wear my military shoes. But if I felt like getting down, I got down in my military shoes. So people were like, yo, man, how's he dancing them? Because I could slide around out there on Castlemont on that floor just like I was in a house.
Dana was
I had practiced so much that just like Vic, you got that rhythm. That's why I think when guys battled each other without music, it didn't matter because you knew your moves and you had the rhythm inside you. You know what I mean? So when you did a certain move, you was in a certain mindset. It really didn't matter what the other cat was doing because you knew what you was gonna do. You know what I mean?
You got caught up like that?
Huh?
You got caught up without the music a few times?
Oh,
Oh yeah.
man, when
Oh
we
yeah.
battle, Vic, we didn't always have
Okay,
music.
Some you.
stand it.
Sometimes we would go
Yeah,
on the,
just
in
turn
between the
around and walk
portable.
away, man. No,
You know,
not right
it didn't
now.
matter. Cats wanted to
hmm
square off against you, you squared off. And the crowd would watch and they would judge. And
Hey,
you
real.
could tell who was better.
Hey, Mark, check this out. Dana used to tell me about how he used to wear the military shoes. Now, dig this one. So I was talking to Chuck one day, and I was like, man, there's all kind of, tricks that, we used to do to practicing to get yourself in a shape. And one of them was wearing ankle weights.
Oh.
I've never heard that.
Wrapping the ankle weights around you, and then
Oh yeah, yeah.
learning how
Making
to
you.
float with ankle weights on. So when you
Yeah.
take them off, you're a lot lighter.
Right. We
hmm
did that
You're a
for
lot
basketball.
lighter. Your balance is a certain kind of way. That's
hmm
one trick. I used to get on the wall and do wall push-ups. Upside down head wall push-ups. Get your traps built up, and that
hmm
helps for your hit. When you're at all kind of the chest, all that. There's things you can do to prepare yourself to put yourself in that shape. And I want to say this: while you guys were wearing Stacey Adams, all that stuff popping, we wore croaker sacks. Girls wore China dolls. We had shirt jackets, derbies. My favorite thing was, and there's a lot of poppers. We wore the Chuck Taylors.
Taylor's the
Get
Converse.
out of here.
Yeah, the Chuck Taylors, man.
hmm
Chuck Taylors, blue jeans. But see, look, in popping era, after the Boogaloos, see, we were wearing blue jeans. As Boogaloo, we wore blue jeans. We had our derbies and shirt jackets, whatever. But when it
That's
came
right.
into popping, they started wearing crap like baggies, and then they went from baggies to Bogarts. Bogarts are like really extra pleated, really large pants. So when you move, and the pants would come after you.
Mm.
They had the double belts. They had the jelly outfits, the jelly shoes,
Oh hell no.
captain hats, captain hats. It got just really like colorful, man, just extreme. So my hats off to you Boogaloos, man. Y'all put that mess down before us, man, and kept it real. You understand me?
Oh man. Well, that's also great what you're sharing too, so people can know the clothes, how the clothes have
hmm
changed and the dance, how the dance and the clothes changed as well.
hmm
So that's great knowledge, people. I'm gonna look up some of that clothes after this as well.
And don't forget your white gloves.
And white.
Oh man.
Right. Oh man. Well,
Hey, Jay. One day, me, Chuck, Randy, I think Donnie, maybe it wasn't Donnie, it was Monk. We were going to a street party, and we were on 73rd. It's a long boulevard in Oakland. It was not. It was maybe at 10 o'clock at night. So I said to Chuck, I said, "Yo, man, y'all look like y'all was banging hard on fire." Chuck said, "No, Tom, we was cruising." And him and Randy and
And
Monk
Donnie, that was Donnie. That
was
hey,
Donnie.
hey,
It was
yeah,
Chuck,
Donnie.
Donnie, and Randy, and they got in the line and they started doing the move that they did when they came, and people started honking. You remember that, Chuck? They
Yeah,
started
yeah.
It's going on.
wow.
They looked smooth, man. And again, they were on the street, no lights, no. They just looked smooth.
Wow.
And I was standing there watching them guys, man, just thinking, like, wow, look how smooth these guys are. And that wasn't rehearsed. Nobody said, we get down here, we're gonna do it. They just fell in line and just started. And see, like I said, hey, we ought to do, Vic, you and Chuck, we ought to do put together some moves and then put it all together. Because even though I really can't get out no more, I see some of this stuff on YouTube.
It's okay.
I'm 65 years old. Let me do better than this.
Listen, Tony, Chuck, and Vic, if you guys wanted to, because I feel like people would really appreciate to see the movements from the past. Like if you did like a 20-second of just one movement, I feel I would appreciate that. I would just say, but like I know that would be like just 20 seconds of one movement of something and be like, oh, this was the name of it. This was the lean, or this was the the bird. But anyway, that's another topic. But I'm gonna I'll probably wrap up this Zoom convo for now. But again, I want to thank you, Tony. I want to thank you, Chuck, Vic. Thank you for reaching out to me, and I know we talked a little bit on the phone as well before we had the meeting. But again, really appreciate your guys' time. And if we don't meet,
Very nice meeting.
if maybe we'll do another one like this, or maybe, man, it'd be great in the future somehow to meet in person or something. LA, Oakland, But I just appreciate you guys.
We appreciate it.
Oh yeah, it's mutual.
Nice meeting you, bro.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Everyone have a great evening.
All right, you too now.
Oh, for sure, man.
All right, Tone.
Oh, and everybody, I'm not on Facebook any longer. So don't be trying to hit me on my Facebook coming at me with no drama, man. I don't do drama.